Welcome in, SMITE fans, to the European SMITE Challenger Circuit. We're bringing you the action here bright and early Sunday morning. My name's Frog, joined by Alpha Jackal, and we've got quite the matchup on our hands. The Solar Scarabs going up against Hex Mambo, undefeated Hex Mambo, might I add. And this match could have some impacts on the seeding here. If Solar Scarabs are able to take it, it's a three-way tie for the top three seeds here. And that could have some deep implications.
Yeah, it could be some potential tiebreakers to decide who's first, second, and third. But Hex Mambo, they're going to want to clean out this entire split. They want to go 5-0, want to make sure they secure that first seed, give themselves the best seeding as well for LAN. And you wouldn't put it past it to be able to do so with the quality that they've shown so far.
Yeah, no, they there's a reason they're 4-0 up at the top of the standings, and we will wait no longer. We'll jump right into picks and bans here for game number one. I mean, at this point, right, we are at the point in the season you'd like to have these teams have a solid sense of where their identity is, what they're looking to pick up. You know, we did have some recent changes, right? These teams are playing on the previous patch, I believe, so we are
Yep.
just 1 week behind. So we haven't had those huge changes, like no Bloodforge change, no, none of those nerfs coming in. But we are still going to see the last couple of patches have been very similar meta-wise. So these teams are going to be able to hopefully stick to their identities.
Yeah, I mean, AMC is still prevalent here in EU. We've seen quite a few Hunter mid players. Still going to have your traditional supports that we've been seeing coming up, like Hell, Aphrodite, Nox, sort of speak out today. Your Mojo are also up there. Then, of course, we can't forget about Vamana and Hebo. Those two really are the dominant players in this meta. So I'll be surprised if we see both of them get through. Maybe just one gets through, But Hades, man, that is a direct shot at Panvich there.
Yeah, I mean, we do see these bans start to come through. I think no surprise on some of those healers. Hades Hell you mentioned as well. Guan Yu being banned, AMC taken off the board. Martikras, something we've been seeing a little bit more and more as the pressures come out, and I think Thor as well. Maybe a little bit of a targeted ban, but as we see those bans come through, it'll be interesting to see what the first pick is here from the Solar Scarabs. And that's their cat. I mean, getting some recent changes,
Step
but
aside.
still kind of surprising to see her be valued all the way up at the top.
Yeah, I'm thinking if top three is fine, but top pick overall is a bit. I'm not so sure, especially with gods like we mentioned, Hebo, for mana still on the table. Horus is still quite highly valued.
Sure.
Your Moja's up there as well. Hercules, we can't really forget about too, as Hex Mambo hover over onto that pick as well. But the Circuit does shut down a fair bit of all of those. Pretty much all of them require healing. Circuit, as we know, true anti-heal on that ultimate. So maybe that's the thing for the Solar Scabs. Just pick up this pure anti-heal from the Circuit to deny the strength of some of these other picks.
I mean, one thing you can say, picking that Circat first pick certainly dissuades one of the other popular picks, Vamana. So Hex Mambo don't go with the Vamana and instead leave that open for the Solar Scarabs. You can even see that, the immediate hover coming out and potentially a Vamana pick for them, as well as airing out on that Heimdallr. I know Echrome is definitely a fan of this god. He's played it to great success so far. So I think having these hunter picks early on, if they do end up locking in this time, you see this Theranos time matchup early on, that'll be an interesting one in the duel lane.
Yeah, it's not one that we see too often, Heimdall versus Kurnos, because when one's in meta, the other one doesn't really seem to be, but we're at this sort of transition stage where Kurnos and Heimdall are sort of picked together. I would say it still favors the Heimdall, despite the fact that the roots from Kurnos also has a cripple to it now. The Heimdall's still able to outbox and always outtrade. Does have a CC immune ultimate as well, so it can get out of the wild hunt, but it's going to have to be careful when going up against the Agni, because those long-range stuns can be a bit of a nuisance to him.
Yeah, I mean, interesting prioritization here from Hex Mambo. They see the front line on the other side, and Solar Scarabs picking up their dive early on. They don't care what carries the Mambo go. They just know they're going to be diving with the Circat Vamana. And I think smart to pick something with a lot of range here, like this Agni. You've got the dash. You can potentially get away from that Vamana ultimate, right? There's no real peel for that big baby. You just have to run away. You can't stop the damage. So definitely some good safety here. And as we see these second phase of bans come out right now, it's a lot of pressure towards the supports.
Yeah, and another thing which the Agni does bring, which might not be so intuitive straight away, is that when you beads and dash with the Surcat ult on top of you, or Surcat still like almost like stinging you, you bring the Surcat all the way back to your team for pretty much putting her out of positions for a
How
kill. Force going to use her combo to get away defensively, or full on commit to the kill, and then sacrificing herself in the process. So the Agni sort of almost has to bait that Surcat in a little bit.
Well, we do see two of the more popular mage supports get banned away, and a third gets picked up. Nox prioritized here for the Hex Mambo. Definitely fits well with some of the anti-dive that you're looking for. Can lock down the Circuit, and I think Hercules is enough of a space creator. But on the other side, you see the more classic Guardian pick up Merlin and Yemoja for the last two here in the Scarab.
Yeah, this is a very traditional draft coming out from the Solo Scarabs. Doesn't look out of place pretty much in any meta, I would say. Maybe the Vimana sort of sticks out as someone that is only prevalent in certain times rather than not. But outside of that, safe picks that every god and every single player in those roles would be well versed on. Still top of their roles as well in the Merlin and Yemoja specifically. Vimana for Panvich, I think is going to be super prevalent in this solo lane matchup against the Hercules. And that's where I think we're going to start seeing a lot of the action early on. The Vimana versus Hercules, influenced by the Surcat and this Bakasura pick now, it's going to be an explosive early game for them.
Yeah, I think definitely Surcat especially has a lot of potential to be the aggressor on some of these buff invades, but Bakasura, not a bad pickup when you're looking to secure a couple of those, first early buffs, right? The Eat Minion is arguably the best buff steal and buff secure mechanic in the game as an early game jungler. But I think, more begs the question of, if you're going to pick Bakasura, in my opinion, you need a ton of space, a metric ton of dive potential, because as soon as he loses that CC immunity off the ultimate, he can get turned around on. It can be difficult to play on this character if you get him focused down. And I'm not sure that Nox is the additional frontline they need.
Yeah, but if there's one player that's going to be able to play this pick to its full potential, it's Johnny. This is a pick which has been feared throughout the last season of Smite. We even got Hex Mambo all the way to Worlds because of his prevalence on this pick, on the Ao Kuang as well. So I believe in it. I believe in Johnny's Bakasura. I think this is the one player who would be able to pick the god in this scenario, and I would go, I like it, rather than I'm more hesitant on it, like you were saying before.
It's hard to bet against Johnny on an auto attack god. I will say that, but we will wait no longer. We are ready for game number 1. Solar Scarabs going up against Hex Mambo, and we will jump right in to the action here. I think the first question that I go to is immediately towards these mid laners, right? I know we talked about some potential solo lane action, and certainly both of these solo laners have the potential to be menaces if they get 1 or 2 levels ahead, start these rotations out. But I'm we haven't seen any difference. Like, there's no switch ups here in the mid meta at all. Nobody's trying anything. Merlin and Agni have been top 2, certainly both in the top 5 for the last 3 patches or something. And one of those reasons is I think both of these gods have a lot of early game potential. Like, this mid 2v2, mid 3v3 would be really interesting in the damage.
Yeah, I wanted to see what it's going to be, especially before level 5, because Agni's probably going to start taking over from that level 5 point, and Kozik's stealing 2 of the small minions here. I think that denies the level 2 early on from this clear, but also Spudio hits level 2 very easily on this curve, so this probably is advantage in the lane to Hex Mambo with that very small play.
Yeah, I mean, I would think they will hit level 2 still from hitting the back minions. Yeah, so they do still hit level 2, albeit a little bit later, but I don't know about that play. I mean, you essentially have handed over the pressure in the lane to the Scarabs versus, Chronos Nox, I would expect to get at least a little bit more pressure. So Nox does steal away some of that farm, looking to boost Spudio early.
Yeah, but in the same instance, I do think that the Yemoja and the Heimdall probably do have the better pressure in the early game, because Nox isn't super threatening without getting the root online at level 2, or maybe even level 3 if they get the dash earlier on. So until that point, the Heimdall clear is overpowering the Kernos clear, and then your Mojo is just there to almost spam abilities until the wave is gone.
Well, we will see, I think, no surprise, some fighting over here on this left-hand side as these two dual laners look to, solidify who's got the pressure in the lane. But we might even get it earlier than we think with the jungle rotation over here. Worst Turtle at least going to be coming over for the shield camp, but not sure there will be any pressure over towards the Nox and the Kernos. And that sort of leads me to look at these early builds, and off the bat, one of the things we go back towards the solo lane, Herc into that defense, or rather offense early on. Meanwhile, Vamana a little bit focused more towards, I guess, staying alive defense first item.
Yeah, I could see this axe becoming either the Sundering Axe or going into the auto attack based one where you get sort of extra magical damage per protections that you've got later on. Both work out very well for the Vamana in either instance. One allows him to survive a little bit better. The other one gives him more damage on his dives. The Hercules, all about those mitigations. Try and stay alive for as long as possible to allow that burst heal to come through, unless the Circuit ult is on top of him, of course. But overall, I think this should go the way of the Hercules in the early game, but Vamana, Panovich is pushing him at the tower.
Yeah, looks like we will see just those blue buffs get secured. Both junglers on that right side of the map. Thought we may see one try and look for an invade against the other, but we are an EU after all. We got to slow things down. I think we're ready already. Thinking about 15 minutes into the game, these teams are just maybe looking to farm, looking to take things a little bit slower. And given that, I'm almost surprised to see the build coming out of Circuit, right? Worst Turtle opting to go into this more aggressive flat pen first, as opposed to the stacking item that we've seen so much more often on these abilities.
It's probably just looking to get as much cooldown online as possible, because Circuit is that ability-based jungler, probably one of the more prevalent ability-based junglers, where your basic attack still will do a fair bit, especially with the fact that she gets passive crit now, but without your abilities, you're still 1,000 times weaker than you would be. So just getting this Jotun's Wrath online earlier on, allowing yourself 20% CDR, just means that you can gank more effectively, you can clear more effectively, and you're just more of a presence on the map.
Well, we do see some presence on that right-hand side. Looks like it will just be a small rotation. And I'm wondering where you think we're going to start to see action first. I know we thought that we may see something around these early buff invades, although we haven't seen anything yet. Both teams hesitant to try and make that first step forward. But, ultimately, these junglers can't just hyper farm until, maybe they can't hyper farm until 15 minutes, but that feels like it's going to way benefit the Bakasura over the Circuit.
Well, I tend to agree. The Bakasura, you want to farm up until you have 2-3 items online. The Circuit, you want to get going early. Snowball is the aim of the game for the Circuit, and right now, behind on farm against the Bakasura. That's obviously going to happen naturally. Just the clear the Bakasura offers with the Golden Blade is second to none.
Right.
Apart from maybe Mercury, just because he walks around the jungle a bit faster. But yeah, Worstill definitely needs to step up a little bit, I believe. He needs to have a look at these targets effectively and look at a gank.
Yeah, try and find some aggression, as it's actually Bakasura trying to find some aggression. Johnny just making his presence known here in the mid lane, but we may get our first sense of action over here towards these left mid camps. Dash away from Nox, blink in from Worst Turtle, and it's on to this Nox, pulled back, no beads available, and it's going to be the River's Rebuke that catches out the support, but the damage isn't there. Not enough follow-up from the mid laner. It'll almost be some damage traded back, and despite the engagement, nobody falls.
Yeah, that was a bit of a... I think they wanted to engage on Hawk there, but going on to the Nox, you see he's got the low nose mask, he's got the Protector's Cloak online as well, or Prophetic, sorry, means that he's very, very tanky in this early game stage. It's reducing some of that damage which is going out onto from the last breath, and everything else as well, just almost tickling her at the very end of the engagement. Nox completely A-okay in that situation.
Yeah, I thought Sap was going to stick around a little bit longer and try and throw out some of those AoE abilities, but The Thought
Oh.
Heim in a little bit of trouble. Echrome taking the 1v1 to Spudio and just narrowly gets out of there with the Bifrost. We'll see if Silence can push up and add a little bit to this pressure. But that's almost surprising that Echrome is able to like, he didn't get the better of that one, but that's closer than I would have thought with that high DC matchup.
Yeah, I would have thought the Heimdall just staying at distance, avoiding the Bramble Blast, would have been able to, take that matchup hand over fist. But as you mentioned, Kernos able to trade out quite effectively. Have a look at the stacks as well on the Devourer score. It's a bit ahead is Echrome, but he's not super far ahead where it makes a significant difference in these boxing rounds.
Kernos will be stunned out, and look at Worst Turtle around the back, looking for the jump over the wall, potentially an in, and no dash available for Spudio, but he misses the initial CC and has to dash out instead. Silence just getting out of there with the Riptide, but the rotation over may grab first blood. Johnny on the board first.
Yeah, he's waited patiently for his time and has found struggling Circuit alone in the jungle. First blood, very easy to pick up there for Johnny. Maybe he didn't even need the regurgitate, but just wanted to confirm it before any form of dash came up from the Circuit.
Well, I think as Johnny grabs that first blood, no surprise that we see the immediate rotation, right? Nobody hesitating. Hold that thought, though, looking for the steal.
Oh, steal!
Scarabs, take it away. I wasn't even giving that energy, dude, and they weren't giving the respect over to Echrome clearly as well. We were both on the same page. We both get fooled. The steal away, effortless from the Hive.
Let this be a lesson. If you're trying to slay a giant mythical bird and you see a magical sword floating in the sky, back away. Just let the sword drop to begin with, then take the Gold Fury once that's down.
Well, we're going to come out real quick to caster double. I do just want to take a quick step back from this game as we get a small pause, but I think, you grab the Gold Fury, you grab the first blood, you automatically feel empowered to get the Gold Fury. You walk over as for... It's got to be a little bit of a mental hit, right? Because you don't even engage on Echrome after that. He just walks away. No relics burn. No, you didn't even have to use the Bifrost. How do you step up to that objective again, right? Even without having a pick.
I mean, I don't think it's a really necessarily mental hit there to Hex Mambo. I think it's a mental boost to the Solar Scarabs, because you're feeling a little bit down. A couple of engagements haven't gone your way, and then an unfortunate rotation, or fortunate for Johnny's sake, Bakasura goes in on the Circuit, gets first blood. You're feeling a little bit down, but then that steal just brings you right back up. You're like, okay, this is fine. First blood completely nullified. We're back to an even game.
And we go right back into the game and see how this action is unfolding, as we will get those names back for you on the players. Hopefully wasn't a bother to anybody else. But Kha'Zix is already the subject of some pressure here. Echrome pushed up. Looks like he did actually steal away that purple buff. So he'll get the Gold Fury and he'll get the purple buff. One of those seems a little bit more important than the other, but you will find a small lead over here in the dual lane, which, once again, not what we were expecting from this Kern having a little bit of the pressure.
Yeah, but have a look at that left-hand side, the net worth chart. Two top earners in the game, both sitting on the Solar Scarabs. Bottom two, the dual lane for Hex Mambo. And that's just translated, as you can see in the gold at the very top of your screen, about a 1,700, 1,800 gold lead in favor of the Solar Scarabs. Even if they didn't steal the Gold Fury, this probably would then have been an even game for them. Have a look. That first blood drew it to an even game for Hex Mambo, and then the steal is just... It's almost spiked up, and the Solar Scarabs are appearing more confident now in their farm.
Yeah, and that's almost interesting considering the compositions, but not consider. They're just going to take this Pyromancer, and that's maybe part of this, improved farm that we're seeing. They're the ones that are finding these opportunities. They'll get the neutral camps. If you've noticed, Worst Turtle has actually been on time for the shield buff, not only for that first spawn. I think he's been at every other spawn of this shield camp on the left-hand side. So they are prioritizing that neutral farm, and it just adds up, especially when you can get an objective like that completely for free.
Yeah, and when you're prioritizing that neutral farm and securing it as a jungler, it means you don't have to worry about splitting with the mid lane as much, and that allows your support to do so. Silenced is about a level and a half ahead of Kha'Zix at this point. it's not the end of the world, considering Nox is built on abilities rather than built on, you know, levels and items. You're still going to do the exact same thing as your level 1 if you're level 20. Well, level 5 versus level 20 at the end of the day.
Sure.
But for the emoji, you do need to get that sort of lead to be able to be as tanky as you need to be. But Kha'Zix, under the cosh from Acer, gets ultimate.
Worst Turtle in on the dash, and he will bring the rest of Hex Mambo over here, gets stunned down, but the Reverse Rebuke catches too, and nobody's there to follow up. Everybody's on Kha'Zix instead, and they're just completely split focus in that fight. The Emoja ultimate gets wasted. It may turn into something on the left side, though. E-Chrome poked out by Spudio, a 2-level lead, and a blink in from Johnny. The Regurgitate will force the beads. They'll grab the kill back as Panvich picks up Hawk on the rotation to mid as well. It's fighting everywhere for the sides here, and Sat picks up the second for the Scarabs as well in the fight in the game. They'll pick up a 2-for-1, make it 3. No, it's a turnaround and a beautiful silence. That lead does not matter if you've got the silence on the ground. Kha'Zix help picks up the second.
That's the second time which the silence field from Kha'Zix is just destroyed Worst Turtle. He did it underneath the tier 1 tower and left. He's done it now again to save the life of Spudio. That's at least one drink that's Spudio owes Kha'Zix for saving his life here. But Worst Turtle, that's got to be a little bit of a tilt to that one.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Especially when you are mid-dash. Like, you can't even predict the silence field. You come around the corner right after the back to base, and you get a clutch silence off. And that's what you were saying. Like, you know, I don't even care that my Nox is a little bit behind if I'm putting down silence fields like that and saving the ADC. Or saving the... No, I'm right. The ADC. I gotta trust myself.
I trust you. I believe in you.
Thank you. It will, though, be the 2-for-2, and I think that could have gone a lot better for the Solar Scarabs if they had just been together at the beginning of that fight. Like they were just so split to start that off.
Yeah, I mean, if they were together either onto Hawk or either onto Kha'Zix, especially if they were on the Kha'Zix, they kill Kha'Zix there. Hawk then falls down later on for the rotation of damage anyway. Kha'Zix then isn't there for the silence field, and Spudio falls down, so knock-on effects happening consistently here in this game, and the knock-on effects for the Solar Scarabs is a 3,000 gold lead here at 13.5 minutes against the undefeated Hex Mambo.
Yeah, I mean, they are certainly looking good to you know, end the undefeated streak if it keeps up at this rate. But I think this is the opportunity that Mambo are looking for. They lost to Gold Fury last time around, and they're definitely going to look to take a fight this time around. But it's fight splitting out before the objective comes out, and Johnny has grouped up with E-Chrome here on the left-hand side. They'll take down the Heimdallr, and they have a pick on the board, but the fight's happening over towards the objective as well. The great Aegis from Hawk gets him out just barely, and it will be the silence will pick up the kill with the bouncing bubble to at least trade one back, and that'll close the door on the Gold Fury window. Soul Inners rotating over a little bit later. I don't know, if they hadn't picked up that kill on Hawk, they might have been looking to push the objective.
I'm 100% looking to push the objective. Hawk goes back to base, comes back in about 10-15 seconds later, full health, maybe with a shiny new tier 2 item, like he's got the Lost Artifact there. And he's then, 5 versus 4 for the Hex Mambo with Julio's rotation. Couple of ultimates down for Solar Scarabs as well. Would have been a very favorable fight, but the cripple field from Johnny making sure that E-Chrome falls down there and unable to teleport away.
Yeah, it definitely was a good engagement there, and I think, you know, interestingly enough, the Solar Scarabs walked over and they got the pick a little bit later, so they had the advantage on the Pyromancer as well. They get their positioning, they take another free objective, and just continue to push their lead little by little up here in this game. And now they even have 2 Runic Bombs, which, you know, could be a look as we start to get later into the game towards that Fire Giant. Nobody's got huge secure on this map, just maybe the Rain Fire from Agni, but these objective secures could come into play if we decide to 50-50 one of these larger objectives.
Oh, the objective of the Gold Fury is certainly on everyone's minds here, as rotations have happened from Julio and Panvich consistently over to this left-hand side and to mid lane specifically. Starting it up, E-Chrome, no, he's dancing around it, and he's actually pulled the objective now, and that's pulled the attention of the rest of Hex Mambo over to this objective.
Everybody's rotating over in the area already, and Kha'Zix will push up just to make sure that their presence is known, but So far, it is the Scarabs with positioning and with the Gold Fury pull. That ultimate comes
Julio.
out, and look for Julio on the backline, forces the blink away and doesn't get the pull in, but that opens the door for Johnny, and he hits a 3-man regurgitate, cleans up the mid laner as well, and all of a sudden it's Hex Mambo on the chase, brings back Johnny though, and Worst Turtle trades out 1-for-1. The help of the peel there, the Heimdallr ultimate taking him down, and now maybe Solar Scarabs looking to push back. It'll be a 4v4, and they've got the ultimate available from Julio if he wants to push in. He's holding it, and he's on to the back line. Spuddio forced to use the Aegis, body blocked, and can't dash the right way. He'll finally make it out towards the dual lane, and the blink in is slowing him down. Panvitch not successful on the chase, but will be successful on the zone. They're back on the objective.
Yeah, this has to be a clean contest here for the Hexman if they want to try and take this Primal Fury away. In comes Julio looking for the pullback, and the Boulder not quite able to secure. Solar Scarabs 2 up on objectives this game.
Julio definitely a little bit too close for comfort on that one. I think the Solar Scarabs are thanking their lucky stars that they don't get it taken away, considering how easily the last Gold Fury was taken away by E-Chrome. But they do manage to take the Gold Fury and frankly go even in the fight. And that's how the last couple of fights have gone. It always feels like this 1-for-1, this 2-for-2. I mean, how are they looking to adapt these fights? Hex Mambo are finding themselves on the front foot, but they have to find an advantage and then somehow keep it. They haven't been able to do that.
I think they just have to realize that the second Choi is engaging, everyone has to push up with him. It can't just be Julio, it can't just be Kha'Zix that step up. Orc and Spuddio have to put themselves into a dangerous position to be able to support this diving back Asura. 3-2 right now. Most of the time when he has dove in to get a kill, he's traded his life out for it, which isn't particularly what you want to see with a back Asura. You want to see him get 2 kills, 3 kills before falling down. But the CC coming out from the Scarabs has just prevented him from doing so.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not an easy composition to fight into, especially when you have silences on both sides, right? You've got Kha'Zix with the silence on the other side. You've got a player named Silence on the side of the Solar Scarabs. You've got guys got silences on both sides, right? It's really tough to play into that one. Yeah. But you know, I think as you're asking yourself how you want to play into this team composition, what is it on the other side, right? Because Solar Scarabs, they do manage to get these consistent picks back, but every time they've tried to engage, it feels like Worst Turtle's on a different target, or they struggle to finish a kill. Everything's been counter-engaged for them so far.
It might be having to just bide the time specifically, or send in a different person to engage. I mean, both times it's been Johnny that's really been the one to go in and be the disruptor in the backline. Wait for Julio to force out a couple relics, force out a ultimate or two. Wait for Kha'Zix to force out the purification beads, dash away from somebody like Sap or E-Chrome. Then you can go in and have a little bit more freedom to wreak havoc on that backline.
Well, now we are nearing the 20-minute mark. Still a 4,000 or so gold lead to the Solar Scarabs, and that will look to improve slightly after they manage to grab this third Pyromancer for them. Now 3 runic bombs in their back pocket. Nope, I'm wrong. It was Worst Turtle. He used one, I think, to secure that Gold Fury over on the left-hand side. So both runic bombs in the pocket of Eye Silenced, and we are nearing that 20-minute mark, nearing the time to start to pull that big objective. Fire Giant available on the right-hand side, and I think, you know, it may start to get looked at as some of these builds round out. We're nearing the point. Look how many finished 4th items the Solar Scarabs have over Hex Mambo. They have a huge power spike right now, it feels like.
100% they have a huge power spike. That 5,000 gold lead that they slowly have incrementally built up over this entire game has got to come to a head at some point. They've got to use it to push into this Fire Giant and be confident about it. Boulder, that's a steal there for Julio, so a small win for the solo laner there. Both of them level 19. But if I look on the side of the Solar Scarabs, level 19 coming from their mid and ADC as well, versus just the jungler and solo laner coming from the Hex Mambo.
Yeah, and a 3-level lead here for the supports. I mean, we were saying the effectiveness, right? You'll get that area control coming from Kha'Zix, but one thing you don't get from those levels and from that lack of gold is the additional tankiness, right? Not only are you a mage, but you're also a mage that is 3 levels down the alternative tank on the other side, tanks on the other side. Kha'Zix may struggle here in the front line trying to survive, and you already see the ease of the Scarabs and their ability to make space here. They have the full control of the gold field.
They can even use the Rivers Rebuke if they wanted to just zone out. Werstel goes in, and there's the Rivers Rebuke, but they're going on to Julio here.
Yeah, he's been separated. He is able to dash away, but Kha'Zix pushes in just to make the space, and Johnny helps the Soul Laner peel out as well. Worst Turtle's on the chase, though, and he looks to get the first pick. This time, Johnny's engagement is not successful, and he won't trade one out. He'll just get traded out himself. It's a 1 for 0 so far for the Solar Scarabs, and Mambo take the cue from their jungler and head back to base. At least it's not in body bags for the rest of the team.
Johnny, unfortunate to fall there. He goes in, regurgitates, immediately recognizes he's in danger and has to leap away. That's going to feel good if you're the Solar Scarabs, to know that your core is threatening enough that a Bakasura with regurgitate activated is scared to commit to the fight continuously. So they're going to feel a lot more confident in future fights. That's, again, that's going to transpire to more plays like this, where they're going to do the objectives in front of the Mambo's face.
20% HP. They do have the runic bombs here looking to secure, and they will take the Fire Giant at 22 minutes, and nobody has to die in the process. Solar Scarabs take the one single pick onto Johnny. They turn into a Gold Fury, and they go right to the Fire Giant. They still are using the time that he's dead, and they use those runic bombs to perfection. Now they've got the power play.
Something we haven't really pointed out until, well, just now, where I'm pointing it out, is the Circuit went into that Yone's Wrath to begin with, so we thought, oh, maybe it's just going to be a traditional full damage glass cannon Circuit. Absolutely not. It's been the exact opposite from that point in. Defensive, tanky items coming out here in order to facilitate them staying in the fight a little bit longer, and it's done nothing to them in terms of their pure damage potential. In essence, they've been able to go in, get kills, dip out. 2-2-2 right now for the Circuit. Definitely could have had a couple more if they went full damage, but definitely would have had a lot more deaths column.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like this has mitigated the effectiveness of Worst Turtle at all, right? If anything,
it's an amplified.
You benefit him being able to be in the front line, and especially Panvich has consistently been able to hold on to these ultimates until late in the fights. It's only beneficial here, and it's just going to continue to be. Look how much space they're making. This is a free tier 2 tower because Panvich and Worst Turtle are just posturing in the jungle. They're just over in the right side of the jungle, forcing the members to look at them, and as a result, they just can't defend the tier 2 tower and left properly, and they'll probably get a free one in mid as well.
Definitely going to be a free tier 2. They have to defend the Phoenixes here, Hexman, because I think they're just a bit too far behind to really put up tower defenses underneath the tier 2. But looks like they're going to position and jostle for it anyway. Good stun by Hawk. But as you can see, Panvich and Ice Islands do not care at all. Tickled by those bombs.
They'll pick up the 2 tier 2 towers, and pinged out is Johnny, looking for him to hopefully make it back to base, and he will at least survive. Thought, a little bit worrying there if he had gotten caught out on the right-hand side, but it's just the Solar Scarabs continuing to mark up this farm. They take the tier 2 towers for free, no ultimates expended. You don't need anything other than just standard pressure. They grab the Pyromancer as well, so now they've got yet another Runic Bomb in this game. Those have come into play already. We can see them push on this right-hand side as well. And Kernos is late. Johnny's late. This is a 5v3 as they're just able to walk into the Phoenix, but the ultimates come out early, and Sap 7 gets poked. Worst Turtle is caught underneath the Phoenix and will have to jump out of there. That could have been an opportunity if they had found the right time to push, but instead it's Hex Mambo maybe on the chase.
And they're looking for Sap. He's caught out, isolated from the rest of his team, but a good stance change has actually helped him create some distance here. Silence coming back in to try and help peel for him, but he's caught out by yet another root. Beads come out, Rivers Rebuke come out for the peel, and Sap, under pressure for the bomb, Shell is forced as well.
Worst Turtle and Johnny boot duking it out on the left side, but he finds the ultimate into Niflheim, goes Kha'Zix, and he will be taken down on the back end of it as well. Sap grabbing the support and it will just be a pick for now as Panvich has pushed out Johnny over towards the mid lane as well. And the only successes that Hex Mambo has found in any of these fights, when they were trading successfully, Johnny finds success with the regurgitate. And it's now been 5 or 6 minutes since we've had a successful ult from him.
I think it's all come down back to that Gold Fury fight where Johnny blinks in and regurgitate has to immediately blink out or jump out even. That was, like you said, 5-6 minutes ago. Maybe even more, maybe even closer to 8 minutes since Hex Mambo have had any success in these fights. And it's just going to start getting a little bit worse for them before it gets better. Solar Scarabs still not even final form with their builds yet. They got one more tier of items each, as you can see, to finish off. And those items definitely are going to be the ones which put the nail in the coffin in terms of the viability of Hex Mambo's die.
Well, this Fire Giant may put the nail in the coffin earlier if they're able to take it, but they will slow down on the burn as Julio is on to the objective, trying to make a little bit of space, but Hex Mambo steal it away! What? Stole that? They somehow managed to get the damage in, and all of a sudden things may flip on its head. Worst Turtle chased down, and he gets turned around on as well. Things go from bad to worse. They lose the Fire Giant, they lose their jungler, and it's Hex Mambo on the chase. Kha'Zix Stash is in and looking to catch one out, but they will just let the Solar Scarabs escape. What a flip there. Hex Mambo now pushing down mid.
Johnny just walks in and basic attacks the Fire Giant for a steal. Wasn't anything else. It was literally Julio creates a little bit of space, walk in and basic attack for the steal. You can't let that happen if you're the Solar Scarabs. You had a commanding nigh on 10,000 gold lead, and now that's basically been halved here by the Hex Mambo as they pick up a Gold Fury to move. Like that, now 4,300 gold, experience difference 3,000, although with most people being on level 20 on the map, that is negligible from the graph. The Hex Mambo back in this game.
My goodness. And that's, you're absolutely right. They cannot let that steal happen, especially you're still holding on to the Runic Bomb for my silence. That's the biggest thing for me. We talked about how Secure is so valuable in this game. It's clearly favored towards Hawk if you're going to compare the Secure. But, not even that. Like, that's how you secured the first Fire Giant. Look how well it went for you. And you're holding on to it now in losing the Fire Giant as a result. Props to Julio for creating the chaos, I think. Like, he was in the Fire Giant pit from 50% to 0%, just forcing damage, forcing eyes onto him. And now Hex Mambo maybe looking for the siege. I mean, what are your thoughts? Do they try to push down the tier 2 towers here from still being behind in gold, or is this only a reset? They're only prepping for the next Fire Giant.
Well, with this Fire Giant, you equate having a Fire Giant buff to being about 800 to 1,000 gold, depending on the strength of the god that you've got at that stage of the game. So if we highball it and say this Fire Giant is equivalent to having 5,000 gold worth of items, they're essentially ahead. They should be finding favor in these fights, so I don't mind them going for objective pushes. I don't mind them going for tier 2s. I think Phoenix's is still a little bit out of their realm, out of their reach, but they do need to find a way to even up the gold at the very least from this Fire Giant push.
4-1 split here as Hex Mambo looking for some tier 2 pressures. Johnny now making his way over towards that right-hand side. I think Fire Giant just a couple of seconds here from falling off. They'll probably only have this one more wave to push if they want to, and Silence is the target first. He gets pushed back towards the team. A good Riptide, though, saves him for the time being. And now Johnny is looking for the engage. Look for him on the back of the fight as Worst Turtle's holding his position there as well. Panvich does not get pulled back. Hex Mambo just waiting for the perfect engagement, and they may have waited too long. E-Chrome pushing up with Panvich, and they're forcing Hex Mambo back. No longer do they have the Fire Giant, and they're on the chase instead.
Yeah, but Johnny eating a minion in front of West just trying to take that blue buff away from them, but instead it's going to be a full-on retreat. Fire Giant has worn off already from Hex Mambo, when I said they needed to find a way to get even in the game. They're still 1,000 gold behind. Advantage on this next Fire Giant, which is enhanced now, goes to the favor of the Solar Scarabs, in my opinion.
Well, it's definitely going to be closer than it was before. Last time you had to get lucky, right? I mean, that was a 1090, if not a 595 coin flip that Johnny somehow manages to take away. This time, they're closer in items. They've got more of these starters upgraded, and critically, they've got a runic bomb of their own. And that's going to inspire them to start things up. Looks like they're looking for the fight instead, but they can't decide. Fire Giant's still being pulled and shredded down quickly. They're going to look for the secure solar.
To steal again!
Steal it this time. They're the ones that are in late to the Fire Giant, and they're the ones that take the first EFG of the game. Still no kills traded back and forth, and I'm not sure anybody wants to force a fight longer than it should last. Solar Scarabs on the aggression continue the chase, but they've got the EFG, they've got the power.
What is it with these teams to not be able to skill Fire Giants? Are they paying homage to Team Rival here? Is that what's going on? They just want to like get that sort of EU feel-good factor of just gambling the objectives away. But you can't do that in a game with this magnitude. For Hex Mambo to try and go 5-0, for Solar Scarabs to force their way into a three-way tie for first. You can't play so brazenly on these objectives.
So there's so much on the line, but we don't even get to see the health of that Phoenix before it evaporates. 4 autos from E-Chrome, and they are still on the chase here, but look at the health bars from Hex Mambo. They may have overcommitted here. Kha'Zix has 20% HP, and Panvich does not care. He'll take down one. He'll chase down Kha'Zix, but that opens a window for Johnny, and all of a sudden it's a 2-for-2. The chaos reigns in this mid lane, and Julio may be next on the chopping block. Make it a double as Silence takes down Spudio, and in the snap of my fingers, the blink of an eye, 4 are down for Hex Mambo. It's only Kha'Zix standing between the Scarabs and a 1-0 lead, and I'm not sure he's going to be enough. Fire minions pouring into the base. River's Rebuke will get popped, but they're going to focus down the support and now focus onto the Titan, and Solar Scarabs take game 1.
1 game away for Solar Scarabs to break the Hex Mambo streak and secure themselves a 4-1 finish in this split. It's close. It was so close in that game from both teams. I mean, Solar Scarabs had the lead for most of the game, but Hex Mambo, you never write them off. You will always have them fighting tooth and nail right to the very end, and they almost so close to completing the turnaround, but the Fire Giant Steel, the enhanced Fire Giant Steel coming out from the Solar Scarabs, solidified the game in their favor.
And dude, things happen so fast at the end there. We don't even get to properly break down that Fire Giant Steel. Like I was dying to point out, Silenced held on to his runic bomb the whole time. He used it on that mid Phoenix, and Kha'Zix used the runic bomb to try and secure that EFG, and not on time with the secure. So they had the secure potential. And once again, I don't even know what steals it, but Solar Scarabs able to answer back. They stole the first Gold Fury. Then, they got the Fire Giant stolen from them. They're like, no, we want the EFG this time. And then we want to end the game like 2 minutes later.
A game that starts with a steal, ends with a steal, and has plenty more going on in between there. But if I'm Hex Mambo, I'd maybe tweak my draft a little bit, mainly because I felt that Hawk on this Agni didn't really have an impact in this game. Now, whether that was because the draft wasn't meant to give him any impact, when it was just there for me as a support style Agni, or whether he just found it difficult to get into positions, something does need to change in that mid lane role to facilitate him being more present in these team fights.
Yeah, it definitely felt awkward at times as they tried to find that 5-man fight. And we know things are going to go to a 5-man fight here in game number 2. But they'll have a chance to adapt. We'll throw it to a quick break and see if they can bounce back in game number 2. Stick around. Welcome in, Smite fans. The Smite Challenger Circuit European side of things. Frog coming at you with Alpha Jackal, and the action has already been hot this morning. We were going into a matchup, right? Hex Mambo undefeated, Solar Scarabs battling for those top couple of spots. And, you know, for all the pressure that this game already had on it, they didn't have to do anything to make it more exciting, but they did. And we got objective steal after objective steal after objective steal. Maybe these teams looking to draft some secure in game number 2.
Yeah, I think maybe getting a Hebo online probably would have been a good idea for one of these teams. The Merlin, I think, is absolutely fine. He has decent burst available to him, but you're right. Something has to change in this game to stop these steals. Maybe better zoning on these objectives could be a thing as well. Use a River's Rebuke as a wall rather than as a trap. Use, I don't know, maybe a Thor could come into the fruition. He was banned first ban here in this previous game, so could see a change there in the picks and bans too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely the onus on to Hex Mambo to see what they can change. And after seeing that in game number 1, how split their fights were, you were right to call out Hawk's inability to play from the backline in those fights. I think a lot of it also was this lack of space created by the Nox in the front line. But I mean, we get to see how they adapt in game number 2. Picks and bans, we can jump right in here. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not, Hex Mambo go for that first pick slot. Solar Scarabs not able to prioritize what they want to take first. And I think, no surprise, Silence taken off that emoji to start the game.
Yeah, 100% was a major issue here for the Mambo to deal with. And the Solar Scarab's going to continue with that Thor ban. Don't want to see Johnny on the prevalent and ever-present jungler that Thor is. Hades still taken away from Panvich, and the Hell ban still going strong for the Solar Scarab. So not too much changing here in terms of the picks and bans.
Well, we say that, but as that third ban comes out, it'll be one more target towards the Solar Scarabs. Worst Turtle was a menace, especially on this tank circuit, right? Like, you do get the damage, you get the true damage, absolutely, but just the space you're able to create. Of course, that does change the picks and bans enough that Guan Yu goes unbanned, and Hex Mambo prioritizing that solo laner, and already Solar Scarabs are instant to lock in their next 2.
Blades of light, smite my
Terra and
foes.
Ishtar locked in here, the dual lane, pretty early here for the Solar Scarabs. And one thing to mention as well to all the fans out there, we are guaranteed at least one more game here. If Hex Mambo do take this, we go to the third and final game in this best of 3. If the Solar Scarabs get this 2-0, we're going into a tiebreaker game between the Hex Mambo and the Solar Scarabs to decide who's first and who's second seed. So
wow,
strap yourself in. We have at least one more game after this one for yourselves.
Yeah, I think Solar Scarabs would definitely rather have the 2-0, right? And at least, be having feel good going into that third game. But it's definitely interesting to know that either of these teams looking to defend that top spot as if they're already holding on to it. But as we see these top 3 picks come out, rounding out that top 3 for Hex Mambo, you pick the carries up once again in the top 2, right? You're forgetting the jungler this time around, and it will be interesting to see the AMC and Terra go unbanned this time around, and sure enough, it's the double ADC composition for the Scarabs.
Sap has his favorite god. This is the pick that he is almost known for throughout the entirety of the time he's been in the SCC, is this AMC mid pick. It is disgusting how much damage he does with it. It is ridiculous how much pressure he gets with this pick, and you're going to pair it with a Terra as well. So the dots coming out from the bees just proc that Earthen Fury consistently. This is a scary looking draft for the Solar Scarabs already. Hex Mambo, they've got to come up with a solution here.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. I think a huge part of their composition is going to be where Johnny goes on this backline pick. You already have part of the dive together. You've got that Guan Yu, and this Cthulhu from the Solar Scarabs is going to beg the question even more. Do you want something that shreds? Do you want something that has, a little bit more dive on the carries? But it'll be interesting to see where they go. And I'm not sure the Kumbhakarna hover is something that I was expecting. Oh, my.
This is a high-risk, high-reward pick. The set, I like the set, maybe because the set can build a bit of tankiness to him. I can still dive in the backline a fair bit, but the Kumbhakana here, going up against 2 ADCs, yes, you have that attack speed slow. They are broken from your mez, but if they're broken from your mez, you are having 2 ADCs attack you in your passive. You are just not getting up at any time.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting pick, although it will be a space creator this time around as opposed to the Nox, which is going to struggle a little bit more. But talking about the dive on the Solar Scarabs, it's that last pick Camazotz that's interesting for me. How do you shut that down, man? You have the CC immunity from the Cthulhu, the invulnerability from the Camazotz. That is a pain to deal with.
I think Mambo are going to struggle here in the mid game, specifically against his Cthulhu. Panvich is going to just walk in and have the freest time possible with the other Fury around him. And then late game, AMC Ishtar, 2 of the best auto attack based hunters in that late game slot, going up against those towers, those phoenixes, the fire giant. Mambo have to snowball early, and Set's one of the gods to do that with. Ram is one of the gods to do that with. Merlin and Guan Yu can hold their own in lane. Early game is king here. If Mambo got off to an early start, we're going to see an explosive mid game.
Yeah, and I think that is, that's all we need. We are ready to lead into game number 2. Hex Mambo looking to fight back in this set. Solar Scarabs looking to push us to a tiebreaker for the top 2 seeds in the European SMITE Challenger circuit. That is a mouthful to say, but we are into game number 2, and I think unsurprising to see the builds start off here. Something I always look for, and I think, I'm not surprised to see that damage item coming out first from Panvich, into that tiny trinket already. I'm never surprised for it, but I'm always excited for it,
Yeah, he's recognized that the one thing that the Guan Yu is going to have over him is sustain. If he stays back and goes into a pure defense build, he's going to get poked out consistently. And Kha'Zix, again, stealing away the 2 smalls from the purple. Silence doing the same, so both supports fumbling a little bit with the purple buffs.
Yeah, it looks like Kha'Zix may both supports, I think, going to stick around and try and grab the last hit if they can. Kha'Zix going to root this one out, not in range though, and I think, oh my, the blink in almost had that last auto there, and Echrome is actually going to chase this one down. Look at where Silenced is. I thought he was going to continue to chase down Kha'Zix, but instead it'll just be some free pressure over here. I don't even know what that...
Turtle.
He's just freezing wave. But now the pressure that they're chasing around in mid as well. Some action as Worst Turtle gets chased out here. Nobody falling too low. Like, I'm not even sure what value you're getting out of that if you're either support.
You're just being a nuisance, and that's what supports are all about, really, in the early game, is finding the way to be as obnoxious as possible. We saw it back when the invade on the speed buff meta was a thing. You made the jungler's life annoying. You made the jungler's life hell for the first 5-10 minutes of the game just by following them around. And following around are the 2 junglers fighting each other out early game, and they're gonna commit to this.
Yeah, Worst Turtle, I think, has the better end of the trade so far. Gets the heal off that jump, but it is one whether or not he's going to chase that out. Blink not available for the set, is available for Worst Turtle if he wants to try and take down Johnny. But look at the healing coming through, and he may catch it out. Johnny has the teleport in, is going to look for the poke off the bat, and it is ignoring the mid camps. I thought he was going to chase down Worst Turtle there under the green buff, but a little bit interesting to see that start come out. And Kha'Zix is still level 1.
How? Oh, there we go. He's level 2. He's hit level 2. Everybody, we can give him a round of applause and give him the plaudits that he deserves. Level 2 on the Kumbhakana, a little bit more dangerous than that level 1 root that he's got. We'll also have either the fling minion ability, or he'll have his mesmerize up. And I'm not sure about you, because everyone has a different answer to this question. What sort of player are you on Kumbhakana? What do you like to level up to max first?
Oh, dude, I think you have to level the 2, because I am actually a big proponent that Kumbhakana 1 is the most useless ability in the game. Like, it's a hill that I am prepared to die on. Like, it just does I don't know. You've got to really be playing a certain type of way if you want to try and get value out of this god. And I think especially as we start to see the things go later into these 4-on-4, 5-on-5s, we'll see potentially that pressure. But before even that pressure, it'll be pressure on the right side of the map. Worst Turtle is there on the invade, but Johnny was looking for the speed invade at the same time. Not going to be able to help out in the blue buff steal, so we'll steal the speed instead. All the while his blue buff gets secured by their soul laner, but Worst Turtle's continuing this chase. It might be a fight around the red buff here.
Yeah, he's looking to try and invade that as the speed buff is also pulled by Hawk. Johnny and Hawk trying to just zone away the bat, but the bat is continuing to be right in their faces. Red buff secured by Johnny.
Yeah, and it will look to be another fight here as the soul laner rotates over, and Sap 7 will be here in the fight, but onto the horse he goes, and Julio helps out grabbing that first blood. Johnny picking up the last hit, and the Cthulhu ultimate comes out, but not enough in the tank to answer one back. Hex Mambo on the board first.
Yeah, I get that you're a little bit frustrated, Turtle, by your speed buff being stolen away, but you're level 3. You know the solo lanes are level 5. You know you're in the solo side jungle. Maybe cool off in the aggression just a little bit there.
I silenced. Will put some aggression down here onto Spudio, force them under the tier 2 tower, or tier 1 tower rather, and going back towards this dual lane, this ADC matchup very different than the one that we saw in game number 1. We saw some action even we weren't expecting in game number 1. Ikram looked fantastic on that Heimdallr, and it wasn't banned out here in game number 2. He just chooses to go a different direction over towards this Ishtar, and Spudio does the same thing, and this maybe is an ADC matchup we're a little bit more used to.
Yeah, definitely one that's going to be played week in, week out throughout the entirety of the season, unless a major shift happens in buffs and nerfs, or even just the entire meta, really. So I'm going to get caught out a little bit here, and they're going to go full in on him.
Early beads there will shut down, though, any chance they have of cleaning that one up. That slow is, no hard CC coming through there, but that slow can be detrimental, especially to an immobile character like AMC. So a good early beads there will get him out of there. And that's a good thing to note. I didn't even notice this quirk. Neither jungler has any hard CC in their kit. That's fascinating.
That's one of this. I would actually be interested to know if this is one of the first times in SMITE history that's actually happened. Considering the junglers are all about going in, CCing and damaging somebody and then getting out for it. I can't put my finger on another match recently where it's been like this, where, like you mentioned, it's been no hard CCs.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of junglers, period, have no hard CC in their kits. I don't know when the last time we saw Set versus Amazon in the jungle was, but Kha'Zix's actually off the mark with that epic uppercut, won't be able to grab silence, and so that rotation over from Johnny will be shut down. And I think a question that I go to early on, right? Once again, I'm looking towards these jungler builds. The jungler's naturally going to be the drivers of this early game. And you mentioned the early game is going to be important for Hex Mambo, and I think geared towards that, Johnny not stacking, Worst Turtle is stacking automatically a little bit slower, but Johnny wants to get involved.
But once again, have a look at the gold lead. It's Hex Mambo with first blood, but down in gold. They're down about 700, 650 gold, depending on when the minions have been cleared. And again, it looks like it's centering around the mid lane, where Hex Mambo are finding their advantages. But everywhere else, Panovich, 1.5 level lead. ADCs, Ikram with a level lead over Spudio. The side lanes so far for the Solar Scarabs are picking up the slack for the mid lane.
Yeah, a little bit behind there early, but we may see those side lanes be the targets here as Johnny once again makes rotation over towards his left-hand side. This shield buff consistently being fought over. That's the third spawn in a row that we've seen these junglers rotate over just to try and fight over this buff, and it actually was Worst Turtle stealing away that small bit of farm as, once again, Silence trying to be annoying and stopping the back of Johnny there on time. But you're absolutely right. I mean, these mid laners have just been completely unbothered so far, and I think no surprise to see them 2 levels, 3 levels above most of the members on the rest of the map. It'll be, interesting when we see them get involved in any of these engagements.
Echrome going to be able to take down that Bastion. First Bastion, not first blood, over to the Solar Scarabs. And Ice is going to get rooted, going to get knocked up by Hawk, but still take only about 10% of the health as damage. Terra is a little bit tankier than expected going for that gauntlet to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, both supports actually going for that gauntlet to begin with. I think neither of them, with how the pacing went in game number one, I don't think either of them were really happy with how they got to stack up that prophetic cloak. So instead, both of them been playing a little bit more passive and leaning in to that more passive side of things. And I mean, if this does remain passive, you mentioned the potential of the Solar Scarabs in the mid game. But if we're getting late, if we're having these objective steals, if we're getting towards these 30-minute fire giants, who's got the edge?
I still think you have to give it to the 2 ADC composition of the Solar Scarabs. You have AMC who's going to annihilate you late game with the build that he's going for. You've got Echrome on Ishtar, who's probably one of the better late game teamfight hunters in the game right now. Panvich on this Cthulhu is going to be almost impossible for Hex Mambo to deal with because they don't have a natural kin size carry unless Spudio does opt to negate going for crit, but he has to go into a crit if he's facing up against 2 ADCs. It's a double-edged sword here for Spudio. Who does he want to really focus on?
Some action here on the left side still as Echrome and Silence. Neither support has really rotated out at all. In fact, I mean, maybe you can answer this question. Why are we seeing so much of this pressure? Neither support has rotated out. Both of these junglers are staring at each other on either side of the Fire Giant, or the Gold Fury rather, and it's Kha'Zix who gets engaged on, forced to uppercut out, and it will be Johnny room for the engage on the other side of the fight as he'll try to focus down Silence, but the damage is not there, and Worst Turtle is able to take down the trade. That just feels like such a forced engagement for no reason.
Johnny goes in just to try and potentially help Kha'Zix survive, but trades his life out for it. Again, like you're right, I felt like it was almost, he felt like he had to go in to do something when he activated the Kingslayer ultimate, but you can't do that when you're up against an Earthen Fury ready Terra and a couple of basic attack based gods there with the Kamazots throwing in a few abilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see the continuous focus. We won't even slow down on that focus. Worst Turtle once again over here on the left-hand side. Spudio getting forced out, and he's a level down. I mean, we can even take a look at the experience leads across the board. Solar Scarabs once again, even with not having first blood, just a small pick right there in an answer back. They've got a 1,500 gold lead. They've got a 1,500 or so experience lead. It feels like they're a level and a half ahead in every role, almost. I mean, how do they consistently get this lead?
It's got to be the secure of those neutral farms. We talked about the shield buff, talking about the mid harpies on both left and right, oracles after 10 minutes when they start spawning. It's all been under control of Solar Scarabs. From the last game, it was as well. This game, you've seen a bit more of a prevalence, a bit more of a need for the contest coming out from the Hex Mambo, but they've still been a little bit late on those rotations. And because they got that neutral farm, they can split with the support a bit more in mid.
Quick pause, folks, but we are back into the game, and we're back into the action, apparently. Hex Mambo, this time it's still the blue side that gets the objective for free, but we're just right into the action. They take the Pyromancer, but that opens up the Gold Fury potentially, and the Solar Scarabs take what I would consider the better objective of the two, as both teams still unwilling to fight for an objective, but they'll take an objective.
I kind of agree that in the immediate future, the Gold Fury is the better objective to get, but depending on how you use the Runic Bomb, that could be the better thing for the mid-term, for the long-term strategy of the game. Because the Runic Bomb can allow you to secure a tier 2 tower. You can use it to secure a Phoenix. You can use it to secure the Fire Giant, the better objective out of everything on the map. And all that come down to the fact that you chose to do Pyromancer over Gold Fury.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how much of a focus the Runic Bomb was. Oh my goodness. Spudio does not miss any autos, and now it's on the snipes. Oh my God! Spudio, in the blink of an eye, he hits 7 autos in a row, he hits 2 snipes in a row, he falls back down like nothing happened. My man, if we had player cams on right now, his expression would not have changed. That was cold-blooded.
That is Spudio week in, week out. This is why every single time he's been touted as one of the players to step up to the Pro League and has shown it in SCC versus SPL matchups, they have banned this drama away from him. He is too clinical with it.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of something to rely on, a string to pull on if you're Hex Mambo, and how you want to try and force this game forward. And that's really where we are at this point in the game. I mean, Gold Fury and Pyromancer, they get taken down. I was about to say, like, when are those going to start? They already have started, but none of the fights around them have started. It's just the objectives that get taken. Nobody's really willing to start a fight here. Are you just trading these objectives consistently until you find the perfect fighter? Like, who is the onus on here to start these fights?
It's a difficult question considering both the supports, I would say, are your best shot of engagement, especially if you're Hex Mambo with Kha'Zix. That Blink Mez from Kumbhakara is such a powerful engage tool. Maybe all of a sudden, Solar Scarabs, I think you're happy with counter engages. I think you're happy with just waiting for the engage to happen, dispersing, and then re-engaging afterwards.
Silenced over here on this left-hand side, maybe looking for an engage of his own as this purple buff is close to spawning, but neither objective is that close to spawning. It just seems like a fight over nothing here. Maybe if they stay. Worst Turtle Sap rotating over as well, a 4v4 for the time being if they've got wards and have positioning over everybody here. The Solar Scarabs looking to catch somebody off guard, but Hex Mambo are not sleeping. In fact, Sap is far from it. He's pushed into the air, and the snipes come through. A beautiful Aegis immunes 2 of them, and Johnny has to retreat now. A good Aegis from him is beautiful onto the Stinger, and Worst Turtle isolates Hawk, and now the rotation over from Panvich in to the Descent into Madness, and Worst Turtle grabs a double kill, maybe a triple if he can catch him, but he will find the back, and they'll just find 2 Solar Scarabs explode into the forefront.
The target was locked in onto Sap, and Sap just goes, I'm an AMC, I have loads of movement speed with my hives, and runs away from everything. The fact that he didn't get the kill onto Sap just pushes him further and further into the trap of the Solar Scarabs. And what did I say? Solar Scarabs, they are happy to counter-engage, they are happy to wait for you to just dive in, not get what you need, and then ruin your lives afterwards. And Panvich swoops in at the perfect time to help them secure up some kills. And Pyromancer is next up on the cards here. Kha'Zix rotating over to make sure they can't lose the objective straight away. But Panvich is, well, he's going to start making his way over to just create that zone space yet again.
Yeah, I mean, you get the soul lane rotation from Panvich, and that lets you get a little bit of extra farm there if you're Julio, but maybe that's not a bonus. It's more just needed. A 2-level lead now for this Cthulhu. He's been quietly farming over in that soul lane. Nobody has gone over there since the first blue buff question mark that we had. Now 15 minutes in, this Cthulhu is nigh unkillable by some of these characters, right? You need more shred to get online before you can deal with this character. And I think now these objectives, that's yet another place to prove it. Panvich and Julio, whichever one of them gets involved at this next Gold Fury fight, if there is one, that's going to be the advantage.
I mean, for Panvich to die, you need Spudio to have his kin size online, but he's still building up to it now. Only Fury is going to be leashed here. They're going to go straight up to Hawk.
Yeah, Hawk gets turned around on, and Worst Turtle finds him again. And it's Kha'Zix who gets taken down as well. Zap 7 grabs the last hit onto that one. But it's just no shown face. Hex Mambo, they're late to the Gold Fury, and when they do show up, it's immediately everyone on the Solar Scarabs is on the same page. They turn onto the mid laner. They turn onto the support. They take down 2 and the Gold Fury for free. They had complete control of that objective.
And that is, once again, more and more of the lead going the way of the Solar Scarabs. You can see from the graph, 7.5, maybe 8,000 experience. They're going to extend it even more with this Pyromancer being taken. No one from Hex Mambo showing up. This has been a disjointed performance from the Hex Mambo, which is not something we're used to seeing.
No, absolutely not. I mean, especially they're 4-0 in this season, right? It's been a clinical series of sets from them. If we can say that, they've looked great. They even had shines of brilliance in game number 1, right? We are far from crossing them off the list. They went from 10,000 gold down to all tier 2 towers on the ground to evening up the gold lead in 1 fire giant steal in game number 1, right? We have to remember that this team is not counting out, not down until they're down on the ground. So Scholar Scarabs still have a lot of work to do. And now that we're nearing that 20-minute mark, that work is coming around the fire giant. And all of a sudden we're back to focusing on these runic bombs, on the potential. Both teams have a lot of shred potential. So, I mean, this fire giant has to have vision on it at all times.
Yeah, you can't let a AMC Ishtar composition just walk up to the fire giant completely unseen. They will take that thing out before you blink, before you're going to go, where are they? They're missing in lane. The fire giant's going to be done at that point. And something else to point out right now as well is that Kozik's level 12. Only Silenced will get anything from killing him at this point, by the way. Everybody else gets no experience, gets no gold if they get the final blow on him because they're over 4 levels ahead of him. It's just Silence that is even worth getting the last hit on him for.
Yeah, and Kha'Zix is just, you know, throwing caution to the wind. He's level 12. It doesn't really matter if he's taken down, so he's fine to push up and engage. And Hex Mambo are on the engage here. Stinger comes out, and Kha'Zix is the one to engage. He will be taken down to start this one off, but that gives time for Julio to rotate over. And Worst Turtle's got to be careful. Still holding on to that ultimate, though, and now it's the chase. Panvich has made space on the other side of the fight as well. Hawk just barely getting out of there with his life, and will continue to chase. May not be able to say the same, though, for Spudio as he's forced into the Astro Barrage, and he'll take down. What is going on? Hex Mambo find the smallest of margins and are able to trade at least 1 back on this left-hand push, but that's not going to slow down the Scarab.
No, the Scarab's going to continue to go on this left-hand side, continue to push down this tier 2. Nothing that they can do about it here, Hex Mambo. I mean, Hawk's trying his best. Kozik's actually back alive already. How quick is that respawn from him? Jungler's having a skirmish in the jungle. Oh, there's over Julio there. Actually successfully repelled them here.
Yeah, they do push back. They get to teleport as well. And Sap sticks around too long. I don't know if he got caught with it. I mean, he had his relics. He used both of them there, but he just loses his life, sticks around too long, and that actually may be the window that Hex Mambo need. They take one down. They're going to have all 5 members alive here. No runic bomb in the tank, but he may have the shred to try and force something.
Oh, we're going to hope that he has to be able to shred anything down at this point, but attention is now going to focus all the way over towards this fire giant. We're 20 minutes into the game. Ward coverage is going to start making its way over to this right-hand side, but with the pings going on that Gold Fury, it might be delayed just a little bit, and I'm not sure if you're Hex Mambo, you want to delay this game anymore. You want to take control of it at this point.
Yeah, man, if you can get into a fight, I really thought they were going to try and force something with having Sap 7 down there. He's been a big target as these fights have started, so having the mid laner down, maybe trying to force something like the Gold Fury, but as I say that, they are positioned towards this objective. 20 minutes in and everything getting started up, you will get the rotation over from the solo laner, and I think Solar Scarabs caught sleeping at the wheel a little bit, but just a regular Gold Fury, you don't lose out on too much. Now it's just the gold lead that's back closer to parity. At 20 minutes, I'm not sure I care as much about 3K.
I don't care too much about 3K, you're right. I think at this point you're more focused on the experience lead if the gold lead is that small. Pyromancer taken low, Zone is good, Julio forced away, so the Scarabs take the objective cleanly. And Panovich is looking at an even bigger one as he starts this one up, but I think he's going to have to leash it straight away with the rest of the team dispersing.
Yeah, Solar Scarab's like, yo, you want to take that, man? You want to solo that? You're totally welcome to, but no, he picks up the Fire Giant. Everybody backs off, unless it was just a bait. They actually pick it back up. They let the Hex Mambo back, and it's only Johnny in range for this. Hawk trying to make his way towards this, but it'll be a steal if he has it in the tank. Good stun, and the Solar Scarabs confirm the Fire Giant and are looking for the fight after the fact. Look for Worst Turtle in the backline. Blink in onto Johnny, and he will force the jungler out of the fight, but a double knockup forces Panvich in the front. A stun comes through as well, and they'll take down the mid laner. They'll take down the support, and Julio is on the run too. Spudio falls for the third, and the Solar Scarabs are charging down the right-hand side.
They want that tiebreaker match. They want to secure this first seed over in Europe and upset the odds. You asked me at the beginning of the split where this Solar Scarabs team would finish. I would have said third, maybe fourth. You know, you have a look at the other rosters. You have a look at Hex Mambo. You have a look at Yomi Tanuki. You would say that those two competing for top two. Yomi Tanuki, disappointing split. Hex Mambo currently sitting 4-0, and Solar Scarabs looking to dethrone them and put themselves in the top spot.
You know, what a play there on the Fire Giant, too. To back off, Panvich dashes away, and you bait the backs out from Hex Mambo. Like, that's the kind of macro play that's going to win you these high-stakes games.
Well, they need to be able to take games off teams that they're not expected to if they're hopeful of going further down in the SMITE Masters land, which will be happening in the middle of June. Don't forget to tune into that when that happens, because we're going to have some SCC teams going up against SPL teams. You're going to see the cross division matches going on as well. It's going to be a fantastic event for everyone.
Oh yeah, lots of action, lots of SMITE action coming at you for the rest of the year. No doubt about that. But I think as we are looking to, you know, we can't cross this game off just yet. Solar Scarabs, fantastic play to grab that Fire Giant, and now they're the ones pushing down this tier 2 tower. They'll take down that tier 2 tower in the mid lane, and a little bit hesitant to push into the Phoenix, rightly so, right? One wrong siege, one wrong step, we see how Hex Mambo are able to bounce back into these games if they get that opportunity. They're going to try and time their push correctly. Worst Turtle going all the way back up for the minion wave, but they don't have too much longer on this Fire Giant. This has got to be flawless.
It doesn't necessarily have to be flawless, but it has to be, you know, cautious if they're not going to be able to take this objective. They have to make sure that they're able to back up safely. But with the minion wave taking so long to get here, they're going to have to wait a long time before they can start this push out. They can see at the top left-hand corner, 25 seconds remaining on that Fire Giant. They've got one shot at this Phoenix.
Got one wave. They've got the fire waves pushing down in right as well, and Worst Turtle over towards mid. But this is a smart decision, I think. I mean, you know, it was a risk, right? And they choose not to take the risk. They choose to back off and wait for the jungle fight instead.
Agreed. This is the safe play. This is the, we don't want to give you anything in this game. We want to take it slowly and, you know, death by 1,000 cuts, essentially, is what the Solar Scarabs by doing with this play. They're not forcing the end sooner than it can be realistically obtained. They're not giving Hex Mambo a window back into the game. They're making sure that it's a professional job done so they can go into that third and final game as a tiebreaker.
A lot on the line here in game number 2. Solar Scarabs holding on to the lead, but this pretty closely resembles what I saw in game number 1, where Hex Mob were able to show signs of life on this next Fire Giant. And they only have one Phoenix down. It's the best Phoenix to have down if you're Hex Mambo as well, pushing up that right-hand side. Last time, it was the Solar Scarabs who just fought in and shredded down the Fire Giant before the Mambo could respond. This time, I want to say it might be something similar, but the Mambo, they're not even going to show up. They're on the left-hand side. They're split pushing a tier 2. They're just going to give away this Fire Giant. I don't know if I agree with this call.
I'm not so sure either, especially if they're not even going to push down this tier 2 tower. They are... It smacks me of like they've almost given up ideas in this game. They're thinking, what do? Nobody knows. The leadership is just not there like it used to be in last season. And that could just be due to the slight change in personnel. Don't forget, this is a different Hex Mambo roster to the one that made it to Worlds last season. And Spudio, he's feeling a bit of the pain right now of that change.
Spudio is going to get caught on the left-hand side. He'll delay as much as he can, but on the other side, Hex Mambo have found themselves a 4v3, and Johnny takes down Echrome. Sap finds the alternate mid laner, though, and it'll be a double kill for Johnny, and all of a sudden, they're able to trade back 2 for 2, and Worst Turtle is now looking to even the odds. Julio is... What? He's able to teleport away in the midst of the fight, and he saves the right side Phoenix. Kha'Zix is the only one left for them to focus, and they can't clean up the kill. Hex Mambo get away with robbery. They take a 2 for 2 and they save their Phoenix.
they get the two most important players as well. They get Sap, they get E-Chrome now. The Phoenix push is just dead afterwards. You can't push it down with a Kamazots, with a Cthulhu, and with a Terra. You just simply cannot. Yes, you may have 2 Runic Bombs, but what are you going to do to push in at that point? You can't. There's no range damage there. See you later. Your Phoenix Siege is over. Wait for the next Fire Giant, Solar Scarabs. Hex Mambo delay the game for another 5 minutes.
Yeah, that is Hex Mambo's specialty. I mean, you think you catch Spudio out. You're like, oh my god, I got a free kill, no worries. But the rest of the Solar Scarabs allow themselves to get into a 4v3. Like, if they had just played a little bit back, if they just played a little bit safer, you almost get a guaranteed 5v4 in the Phoenix. And now they might even lose the Oni Fury. Hex Mambo are not afraid to push up, even though they are still the ones that don't have Fire Giant. 3 Fire Giant members still on the Solar Scarabs. I think you're right that they can't push, but to me, it would be foolish for the Mambo to not show up to this next Fire Giant.
Oh yeah, 100%. They have to show up to the next one. You can't let Solar Scarabs have a free enhanced Fire Giant, because if they get it for free, they're going to push down all 3 Phoenixes with the double Hunters very easily anyway. And you're going to fight underneath the Titan and probably lose that. In fact, Silence is going to secure this with the 2 Runic Bombs. See you later, Phoenix. 5 minions are going to be respawning down that lane. And look at that. Hex Mambo. Disjointed on whether they all should have backed or just wrap around here. Julio wants to engage.
Yeah, and they're going to come at it from a split direction. Ishtar ultimate comes through, and the Terra ultimate grabs all 5 of the friendly team for the healing to come through as well. Snipes into the air, though. Sap dodging out. He's got the juke shoes on, and he'll stay alive in the back line. Johnny as well, forcing the fight over towards the blue buff as Panvich is able to trade 1 back at the very least. A 1 for 2 thus far, though. And the Solar Scarabs, they're pushing down potentially for more. It'll be 3. And it may even be 4 as a triple kill comes through. Worst Turtle is divine. And that may be all she wrote. The Phoenix is down. The only member left is Julio. And I'm not sure he has it in him to defend against 4. The Solar Scarabs will break the undefeated streak of the Hex Mambo and push us to a tiebreaker.
There one more game to decide who is top seed, who goes through as number 1 in EO, and who goes through as the 2nd seed. It's between these 2 teams here on screen, and if you are playing this game, as we are doing straight afterwards, you've got to feel good for the Solar Scarabs. The momentum completely in their favor here.
Yeah, that is what I'm holding on to if I'm the Solar Scarabs, and I am like almost struggling to bounce back from if I'm Hex Mambo, because it feels like you get so close to clawing both of those games back. You have a Fire Giant steal in game number 1. You're able to shut down one of those Phoenix Sieges completely in game number 2. And then it's these small plays. Like you said, like, how does that happen? You just get split 3 versus 2, 3 on one side of the fight, 2 on the other side of the fight, half of them back for a Phoenix Siege that's delayed. Like, the communication just has to be better.
I mean, what they did was they tried to engage on Sap yet again, and they are unable to pick up the AMC because of how fast he is. We mentioned that there was no CC on Johnny from this game. He does have a slow. The slow coming out from Julio as well. There's a slow coming out from Cossack, slow from Spudio. None of them are able to connect onto Sap, and he's just running around, like you mentioned, with the juke shoes. And you put so much effort into killing that mid laner, get nothing from it, and you're then just in the middle of a fight where you have 0 resources left.
Yeah, it definitely does not feel good to miss those snipes, especially how we were praising Spudio on the Rama. You lose out on that one all-important kill potentially in that fight. But that is not all she wrote for the EUSCC. After that one, we are 3-way tied, at least in record. Only 2-way tied, though, for the top 2 seeds, and it's those 2 teams that we just saw, Solar Scarabs and Hex Mambo. Up next, a best-of-1 tiebreaker to determine the first seed in the USCC. You're not going to want to miss it. Stick around. Welcome back to the Worst Turtle Show, friends, here in the EUSCC. I say that jokingly, but really, the Solar Scarabs have had a fantastic showing already in the first 2 games that we've seen today. My name is Frog, joined today by Alpha Jackal. And Alpha, it feels like we're in a whole different set, right? We've got to reset things. And that's really what the Hex Mambo have to do. Because at this point, Solar Scarabs, they've won. They've won the set. Right, like they've knocked the undefeated streak. Both of these teams are 4-1, but this game's happening right after. Like it's not a best 5. You can't keep the same mental. You have to reset going into this tiebreaker if you want any hope of getting this first seed.
Yeah, if you're Hex Mambo, you just shake it off and go, right, it's a new set, everybody. It's a best of 1. Just win this professionally, and we'll do what we need to do and qualify as first seed where we rightfully belong. If you're Solar Scarabs, you want to keep that momentum. You want to keep that high just going as much as possible. And maybe even draft an early game composition to just run through the Hex Mambo, just keep that, keep them down mentally.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of directions that this can go, but it's going to be an exciting one, and we don't have to wait any longer for picks and bans here. I want to say for game number 3, but really it's game number 1 here. You see the 0-0s reset at the top of the screen, and there's a lot on the line, right? I mean, we know both these teams. These are our top 2 seeds, so both of these teams we're going to be seeing at the Masters LAN in mid-June. But I mean, this 1 versus 2 seed has the potential to, you're facing the undefeated Oni Warriors, or you're facing a different SPL team, right? Like there could be a lot riding on this seeding. Yeah,
this separates the sides of the bracket that you're on, and every single team is going to go, I don't want to face the Oni Warriors, please. Thank you very much. I mean, currently having the longest undefeated streak in SPL history, who would want to go up against that until you're in the finals? You want to make sure that somebody else has a chance to knock them out first.
Yeah, I think, definitely a lot riding on this one, and you can see the bans rapid firing through. Hex Mambo, they are going to be able to get into that first pick slot here like they were in game number 2. And as they change the bans a little bit this time, they don't ban the Yemoja away from my silence. Instead, they're going to pick it up themselves. Take away Sap 7's pick, take away the Guan Yu. They grab themselves a solid frontliner.
Yeah, I think banning out the AMC was a crucial thing they needed to do. I mean, every single time Sap's picked the AMC up, he's just run games with it. But unfortunately, by banning away the Guan Yu as well, you leave open Serket for worst turtle to pick. And if game 1 is anything to go by from your best of 3 earlier, this is nightmare fuel to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him build, I think he went first item Jotuns, and then he just built like a soul laner. He goes like full tank the rest of the build, and that is not fun to deal with if you're a carry on the other side. And this is the exact dive that they had in game number 1. Panvich looked fantastic on this Vamana as well. He keeps going back to those CC immune ultimates in the soul laners, but this was something that we talked about after game number 1 as well. Looking for a little bit more secure, they find the Hebo here in the draft early on.
Yeah, I like the Hebo change-up. If the Serket dives in, you have a great opportunity to blow the Serket up with the Hebo. And it's not the Agni that we saw Hawk struggle on in game number 1. So adjustments here by the Mambo is fantastic to see. Solar Scarabs, though, they could be doing a salty run back here. That's got to be just a shot saying, get Hawk, please just pick the Hebo for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it still could go towards the jungle, right? Johnny, I think, not necessarily a huge Hebo player. We haven't seen a ton of it from him this season, but still some flex potential, although not much flex potential in this other pick. The Hercules definitely going to go back towards that soul lane for Julio. And as these second bans come out, I think, good to focus down the carries from the Mambo and even still focusing out that mid laner. They'll take Agni off the board. They're not convinced that this Hebo is going towards mid quite yet.
I mean, I would suggest, at the very least, consider giving it to mid. But you're right, Johnny could pick this up for the jungle. We have seen that Hebo be majorly flexed between those 2 roles. The Kernanos potentially going to be locked in here for the Mambo for Spudio, as his realm was taken away. Kernanos is indeed going to be the ADC pick. Ishtar still on the table. I imagine that's what Solar Scarabs would go for to match up to it. But Baba Yaga going to be the pick for Hawk, giving him a lot more safety than the Agni and the Hebo would provide ordinarily, thanks to that home sweet home. And like I said, Ishtar going to be the lock-in here for the Solar Scarabs.
Blades of light.
Yeah, I mean, we
Smite
talked
my
about
foes.
the inability to peel the Vamana way all the way back in game number 1. So this safety you get from the home sweet home is definitely going to be good for Hawk. But we don't even have to analyze it too much more. We are ready for game number 1, the one and only game in this tiebreaker set. Best of 1, the winner going to SMITE Masters as the SCC number 1 European seed. And I think no surprise that we're going to see something a little bit spicy off the bat. 5 members grouped up here on this left-hand side.
They want to catch out Silenced.
Yeah, I mean, and after 2 engages in a row, they know he's going to push.
They know he's going to come. Which way round is he going to go? Is he going to come back here
No
at
way,
all?
man.
He sniffed something out. So he sees Cosix, he sees everybody. He's backing off now. They pulled the trigger on the trap a little bit too quickly there.
Yeah, I think they wanted the over-under, right? Like either they catch him early and they're able to get it, but at 45 seconds, you step up. If it doesn't happen, the worst case scenario is this, right? You still get back to lane in time. Their start is not going to be interrupted, although I think Silence may now think twice about pushing up to that purple buff like he has done in the last couple of games. And I think we'll see a more normal start, which means we get to talk about the picks. They do put Johnny over towards this Hebo and jungle, and after maybe I might say a rough couple of games from Johnny, I think we've seen him struggle on the typical auto attack characters that he's very good at in game 1 and game 2. He goes towards a little bit of a different pick, right? Hebo's looking to do different things in these fights. Yeah,
and we have seen that the supports are still going to continue to do what they wanted to do from the previous games. That's just clear out those camps. Johnny helping Spundio over here clear out the rest of the camps on this side of the map, pick up the speed buff. And I'm interested to see how Johnny does play this. He has played Hebo in the past. It has been one of the picks which has been feared from him. I want to see if he's just able to continue the momentum which we normally see him have once he gets going.
Silence gonna look to okay. I think good there from Spundio, not even risking that could get taken away, and both ADCs are able to secure their own purple buffs hit level 2 before the respective supports, and we'll start to see this constant aggression that we've seen in the dual lane thus far from both of these squads. You know, I mean, we saw Heimdallr going against Kurnos, then we saw Rama Ishtar, now we see Kern Ishtar. This is arguably the most aggressive matchup of the ADCs that we've gotten so far, and even without that aggressive matchup, we still constantly have been seeing this aggression. These guys like to fight.
Yeah, this is probably one of the matchups which favor Ishtar a lot more so than the others, mainly because there's no CC immunity from Spundio. If he does get called out by those Blades of Light from the ultimate from Echrome, he's stunned. It's a guaranteed stun at that point because he can't get out of it unless he beats it.
And I think we may see even earlier action than we're expecting. Kha'Zix and Silence both still level 1 here, almost 2 minutes into the game. You'll get that blink in from Worst Turtle, and that reveals the beads pickup from Kha'Zix. Something maybe a little bit surprising to see beads on your support, and I certainly can understand it into, you know, the CC that the Solar Scarabs have. But
Sap.
Hold that thought. Sap under a little bit of pressure here. Johnny looking to find the first blood, and will do so onto the mid laner, even with a little bit of added safety on the Merlin over the AMC, still taking down Hex Mambo on the board first.
I'd argue that Sap plays a lot safer than on the AMC than he does on this Merlin. Merlin, with that dash available, he plays a little bit more up front, gets caught out in the jungle there, and you can't be caught out in the jungle as a Merlin without your dash. Johnny picking up first blood here, but he did pick up first blood in game number 1 as well on the back of Sora. We all know how that game went.
Yeah, not able to really fuel that one into the lead that he was maybe looking for, but you can see already Hex Mambo looking to be a little bit more aggressive off the bat here, potentially. I thought they may go for something like a red invade after we saw that getting pinged out on the map, but instead it will just be these blue buffs secured by their respective jungles. And one thing I'm keeping an eye out in this game already, like 3 minutes in, I want to see how this continues over the course of the next few minutes. Solar Scarabs, once again, they get first blooded, but they've managed to bounce back and find a lead in every one of these games so far. Hex Mambo have to find a way in just farm to hold on to this small lead.
And so far, so good for them, as the First Blood bounty of just shy of 500 has actually been extended here, of just going over the 500 mark now for Hex Mambo. And they're securing these mid camps, as they're securing this neutral farm, as well. The shield buff secured, the mid harpies on right, I believe they secured them as well. Left ones are still up, and junglers are taking their time to get to them. I mean, Sab looks like he's going to secure them by himself, as Hawk not going to be any too contested at all without any mana.
Now, one thing I do find interesting in the build differences here, and get hold
Oh,
of that
wow.
spot, the ultimate coming through from both of these ADCs is Echrome forced to dash away. Spudio almost able to trade 1-for-1 there if they had continued that action, but look for worse. Turtle here, beads are not back up, 20 seconds still, and he misses the thing. He goes for the double taunt, and he only gets one, and it allows for Johnny to come in on the back line as well. Echrome is now dashing away, and the immunity comes through as perfect from Johnny. A two-man ultimate, a two-man knockup for the space creation after the fact. Johnny getting involved early.
Johnny's always getting caught out here, though. A worse turtle. The taunt is not going to be on the mark, though, as he's looking for the aggression once again. He's going to go back for seconds, for thirds, for fourths. He's not giving up on this kill.
Worst turtle still chasing it down, and Johnny may be the victim here if he continues to chase. He can't run towards mid. Sap 7's there to help out if he does, but maybe Hawk, that is in a little bit of danger if he sticks around. It ultimately will not be Worst Turtle grabbing that one back, and I'm happy with that early pressure from Johnny. I feel like, you know, the last couple of games he's almost been hyper farming even after getting that first kill, but that's the first counter rotation we've seen in a while. He gets to that gank later, but he's ultimately the one with the kill.
Yeah, this is 100% what we wanted to see from this hero pick. 100% what we wanted to see from Johnny in the first two games. And we're finally seeing it here in the tiebreaker game of all things, when everything is on the line, when Hex Mambo's dominance of the EU SEC is under threat. The main man steps up.
Yeah, and you couldn't ask for a better time to do it, right? The question is, how is it going to proceed throughout the rest of this game? Both games that we've seen so far, I mean, you know, past 30 minutes in game number 1, and then game number 2, we see 27, 28 minutes. We're getting to the later stages, right? We've had plenty of opportunities in these games to fight 4-on-4, fight 5-on-5. And as much as the Scarabs have the same dive as they did in game number 1, I think this fight for Mambo looks very different than it did then.
I think the fight looks more even than when you had a look at it in game number 1 versus this tiebreaker game. I mean, Hex Mambo's team fight is absurd. They have the River's Rebuke this time. They've got a Hebo who will almost guarantee kill somebody in these team fights, even if he trades himself out. You've got the Wild Hunt coming out from Spudio, the Home Sweet Home coming out from Hawk. Two great big team fights, defensive ultimates to make it difficult to dive. The Solo Scarabs are going to have to play this a lot more safely than they did in game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a little bit more space creation tool. A little bit more space creation tools. That's a plural right there from Hex Mambo, but we won't even get a chance to analyze that if I silenced. We'll look for the engage here to the skies, not charged out. Thought that may be a small engage over towards this back left, but instead it'll just be the posturing around this neutral farm. Once again, the shield buff is being contested as these junglers make their way over towards the left-hand side. One question I was going to ask earlier, we got interrupted by a team fight, was these support builds, right? Game 1, we saw Prophetic Cloak. Game 2, we see Thebes from both of them. Now we see a split. I mean, who is this benefiting?
I think right now, the benefit will go towards Iceland and Spike second to score early, mainly because he's going to feel tankier. But when you get to about 20, 25 minutes and Kha'Zix has finally got the Prophetic fully stacked up, he's going to be the major beneficiary of it. He's going to be able to be more of a presence at the front line because he's got access to 15% damage mitigation, where Iceland is going to try and find that from elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, these ranged autos, right? One of the few supports, I think, with ranged autos, you get to stack that up a little bit easier, at least, in this game. But, you know, as we sort of edge towards the time in the last 2 games that we've seen these objectives being pulled, no questions just yet asked of these objectives, and I'm wondering who is going to try and ask those questions first. Is it on Hex Mambo with the small lead, admittedly, but they're the ones with the lead. I mean, are they trying to force a fight around one of these objectives?
They got to, really. I mean, you have a look at the gold lead. They were a 600, 700 gold lead. Now they're down to 400, 300. The lead's slowly turning in favor of the Solar Scarabs once more, and that's, again, coming down to the superior farming they're able to do. They're able to split more efficiently. They're able to secure some of these contestable objectives a lot more easily. If you look at Wurstel, he's already on the way to this shield buff to help his team get back into the game gold-wise.
And meanwhile, it's Sap being forced out in mid as well. Johnny is going to look for a little bit of that pressure along with Hawk, but not able to find that mid laner and any real pressure. And I think ultimately this continuous fighting around the left-hand side, something's got to give, right? And we're nearing towards the 10-minute mark. Consistently, we're seeing Worst Turtle show up towards the shield buff. Both junglers arguably coming over there, and no surprise, Worst Turtle, he's got a lot of power, right? That Jotun's is a lot of damage, but he's going to fall off a little bit in terms of the damage, especially that first item is already looking to be another defense item.
Well, when he goes into this first defense item, which I imagine will be Pestilence, he built that as his first item last time. 80 magical protections, the highest magical protection item in the game, means that he's then almost impervious to the damage coming up from Johnny. I think at that point is where you're going to see him start to be a lot more aggressive, especially if he finds Johnny or Hawk in a mid 2v2. He's going to feel almost unkillable in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the pen being a little bit delayed here from Johnny. Second item online, nothing quite yet. We'll see when Worst Turtle is able to finish out that second item and if it comes before the opposing jungler. But so far, just a lot of posturing between these two teams. And we've kept an eye on that gold lead. Solar Scarabs continuing to claw their way back in. Did they ever pick up the Gold Fury in a fight that they're trying to force, or are they just they really want to keep it just this slow farm game?
I think if they do pick up the Gold Fury, you're going to look for them to bait out a fake fight. So what they're going to do is they're going to wait for Hawk to use his Home Sweet Home, or wait for Spudio to use his Wild Hunt, then dip out of the fight, wait for those things to go off of cooldown, and then go back in for the second bite of the cherry on the Gold Fury. It's the old adage of what do you do on a defense? What do you do when you're trying to siege into an ARP wash? You wait for him to fire off his Empty Decrypts, you back out. Once that goes on cooldown, you're then able to engage on that Phoenix a lot more easier. You do the same thing here with the Hex Mambos.
Small engagement here towards these left side mid Harpies, and that's going to be Oracle Vision gained for Hex Mambo. I believe they grabbed that one. So no sneaky Gold Fury is going to happen, at least for the next couple of minutes. And that's good for the team that's looking to pull the trigger, especially as this Pyromancer now spawns at around 11 minutes into the game. This is an objective we've seen have huge importance in the last couple of games, right? This one, maybe a little less, because you finally have some secure in the form of Crushing Wave. But still, the importance of these runic bombs cannot be understated.
Runic bombs, they've definitely been a mainstay of the set that we saw between these two teams just beforehand. The team that secured the most runic bombs was the team that won the game. And in both instances, it was the Solar Scarabs. Hex Mambo definitely have to take note of that. Have to make sure that they keep this objective watered so it isn't stuck away consistently like it was in the last two games.
Yeah, ward coverage has looked great, by the way, for both of these teams. I think that's part of the reason that we're not seeing as much action as we could be. Every time Worst Turtle shows up, every time, just barely off the mark on catching one of those carries in that River's Rebuke. But every time we see one of these junglers posture towards a lane, it's they're here. We see them on a ward. We're gonna be careful. But this time though, they're walking onto the ward. They see the Oracle Vision. They're trying to shred this one down. The Gold Fury, that's just gone. Johnny is the only one in range, and he cannot contest. Even though the vision is there, they find the opening. Everybody backed in a secure Gold Fury for the Solar Scarab.
That's not ward coverage that gave Solar Scarabs the opportunity to do that. You see, no aggressive wards for them on the left-hand side. That's just pure game knowledge. Just knowing what happens when they fire off those ultimates and back off. Johnny forced you just run away a bit as the aggression came out from the Solar Scarabs. But great call. Whoever the shot caller is from Solar Scarabs, he's earning their team the first real lead of the game here for the Solar Scarabs.
This could get dicey, though. They're going to pick up the Pyromancer and maybe look for a fight, but The beads are off of Johnny. Now the ultimate is off of Hawk. They will push back the mid laner. The Riptide forces him down to half HP through the Aegis. Good Riptide there from Kha'Zix. Maybe gains them a little bit more space as the soul laners almost rotate over if that fight had gone on a little bit longer. But I think that that Gold Fury has Hex Mambo a little bit riled. Looks like they really they wanted to pick up the Pyromancer, but then they got into a fight. Like they're definitely beating themselves up for that.
Necro picks up the shield buff, immediately loses the shield buff thanks to Johnny being there with a long-range knockup. It's frustrating, but at least he took less damage from it.
Yeah, at least does get a little bit of value out of that shield buff. It's not
Extreme
completely
value.
off the table at the very least. But no, Pyromancer's still on the board here, and the Gold Fury, the Gold Lead rather, yet to get out of control for either of these teams, which so far feels good for Hex Mambo. In the last couple of games, you know, in a set previous to this tiebreaker, they've let it get out of control a little bit. 3K at this point in the game. So I think, you know, they're staying in it. At least nobody's out of this game just yet. And I think both teams still have as much of the reins in their hands as they can to try and start these fights and force these engagements.
Yeah, I think that's just down to the difference in draft that we saw from games 1 and 2 in this tiebreaker set. As pointed out, the Hex Mambo draft is a lot more solid defensively, with the ability to self-peel for the 2 carries more specifically. They're more difficult to gank, and in that, Solo Scarabs are finding it more difficult to push on some of their farming advantage into kills and into leads.
Oh my, Relics forced out from E-Chrome there. Spudio just dealing out the damage and burns both Relics seemingly for free. It's only Spudio's ult that gets swallowed, and those Relics are going to be down for this Oni Fury spawning in just under a minute, right? I mean, Kha'Zix now making positioning. Hawk is over here as well. They're positioned for this aggressively, and they'll just take down the support. They weren't ready for that level of damage, and Kha'Zix gets taken off the board for free. Hawk is going to follow as well as losing the beads while he gets taken down. I thought it was good that they took the relics from E-Chrome, but they take 2 lives in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, Caster's Curse happens there quite often. I mean, I laud their defensive ability, and what happens? They just get picked off one by one in the jungle there. Tower falls down in left, tower falls down in mid. It's all going wrong here for Hex Mambo. The #1 seed under threat to go as #2 into the SMITE Masters here. This is unprecedented in EU.
Yeah, they've been #1 the entire split thus far, as Solar Scarabs will continue their push down after those 2 picks. They'll not only get 2 tier 1 towers, but they'll grab the Pyromancer, grab the first runic bomb of this game as well. And now they're set up for the Gold Fury. E-Chrome may get caught out here, but look for the To the Skies comes in and helps out the ADC. Johnny is trying to take down the kill and will do so with the help of his mid laner. Those relics come back to bite him. E-Chrome falls, and now that's a window on the Gold Fury.
This tiebreaker, this best of 1, certainly is spicing up again as Hex Mambo look to take the second Gold Fury in the game. This time it's going to be the Oni Fury, and, well, Solar Scarabs, they're going to give this one up sensibly. Without E-Chrome around, they don't have the damage capable to really be taking on a fight of that magnitude, and this lead shrinks here, down to just over 1,000 gold and just shy of 2,000 experience.
Well, I think I think we're gearing up for a big one here, right? And in this previous set, it happened as well, right? We lean towards these objectives, we get a small lead for either of these teams, and then it's over towards the Fire Giant, and we could see steals back and forth like we saw in game #1. But this time the gold lead is closer than it has ever been before when these 2 teams have faced off, and the item differences are closer before, right? Both of these squads have players in very similar power spikes. The biggest is a 1-level lead respectively in the soul lane and the jungle on the other side, right? There's no huge experience lead, there's no huge item difference. Even if you finish a small item over, it's 1 tier 3 versus a tier 2 on the other side, right? It's going to be a huge struggle. Like positioning and fight differences are the only things that are going to find reliable openings here in these fights.
Yeah, ward coverage as well is going to be absolutely key to make sure you can take those advantageous fights or can take objectives when the opposition team all groups up on a central ward they didn't know was there and backs to base. You've got to look for those small windows of opportunity to then open up those gaps a little bit more. As you pointed out, the very, very fine margins here in this final game between these two teams.
And that means I get to ask you the hardest question of all. You get to predict and analyze who starts this fight. No, who starts this fight, man? Both of these teams have been so unwilling to force a 5v5.
Panvich starts
the final engagement? Panvich may be the one to start it. I don't even get to finish the question before Spudio gets the whole force of the Solar Scarabs coming into the skies. With a blink in from Julio, tries to force back Sap, catch him off guard, but almost over nothing. The Gold Fury isn't even up. Nobody's got the Fire Giant. They just wanted to find a 5v5 next to this tier 2, and all that action for nothing. Nobody even dropped below half.
Yeah, but have a look at the resources that we used. Eye Silence uses this across the skies versus Hex Mambo. They use both dual and ultimate set. They're going aggressive on Spudio once more because they know his relics are down. They want to try catch this ADC. One more shot should do it. And he's there. E-Chrome with the ranged autos.
Beautiful usage of that first ability there from E-Chrome. It's such a unique not like it's a unique place. Like no other ADC gets that kill in that moment, right?
No.
So they find Spudio on once again the thinnest of margins, and they're going to continue pushing down with these small openings. They get the tier 2 tower, and now that's the path to a Phoenix. And all of a sudden you start asking the questions, okay, maybe they can push on a Phoenix. All we got to do is win one fight, get 2, get 3 down, grab a Fire Giant. The end of the game getting closer and closer, but this large objective on the right side of the map still looming, and ultimately has to be the next question we ask.
I mean, even if you are Hachiman with your ranged autos, you only get 4 shots of them, so you still don't pick up that kill. It is only Ishtar that gets that kill there, and Hex Mambo, the only ones who are going to be receiving a runic bomb at this stage of the game. It has taken them another 7 minutes from where it was in game 1, but the Solar Scarabs do open up that 3,000 gold lead that they so love to just stick around on. They want to be that just shy bit ahead to the point where you can't engage on them, but the Solar Scarabs can choose freely what objectives that you guys are going to be fighting over.
And I think the biggest thing in terms of map state is how much additional space the Solar Scarabs seem to have. Hold that thought, though. Gold Fury getting picked up, and we'll get shredded down. That damage would half out with just Sap 7. E-Chrome wasn't even there. So they certainly have the shred if they want to try and fight over this, but it'll be a 5v5 once Panvich gets here. The Gold Fury is the target just now, but look for the Vamana in the back line to try and find an opening in this engagement. The Gold Fury gets focused down. Solar Scarabs take it. Nobody willing to enter into a fight. And I bet you, back to what I was saying, they have still 2 tier 1 towers on the map for the Solar Scarabs. Even if Mambo win a fight hand over fist, they don't have the same path to the base that Solar Scarabs do.
No, Solar Scarabs, you could even argue that this tier 1 tower on the right-hand side doesn't exist for Hex Mambo because of how low it is. It's a formality to walk in and take this tier 1 tower down. And that'll be the final tier 1 tower that Solar Scarabs have to take in this split before Smite Masters. But Fire Giant started by Hex Mambo. I'm not so sure about this one.
Ooh, and they agree with you. They hop off immediately. They wanted a little bit of a damage check, and now the onus. We saw this from the Scarabs with 1 back, and I thought more would back, and maybe you would have had a window for the Solar Scarabs. But now Hex Mambo, they've had a good shot to fight back into this. They've got the Runic Bomb. They've got the Crushing Wave. They want to secure this. Looks like the fight will start before the Fire Giant, though, and Julio and Worst Turtle both getting poked down to about 60% HP. Will look to force some backs if they decide to slow things down. But as opposed to the random 5v5s you're seeing around the tier 2, now at least it's around the Fire Giant.
Yeah, definitely where the Solar Scarabs wanted to be, but also where Hex Mambo wanted to be. Their composition works very well in jungle fights compared to lane fights. Because of their circular AoEs, they perform much better in these tight jungle corridors.
Silence looking for an engage. Almost caught out a stun there if he'd connected with that fracture. But Kha'Zix is pushing up. It's a blink in from Worst Turtle, and Julio is the first one under fire, and he turns it around. He'll find the jungler for the Scarabs, and it'll be a 1-for-0 down first. And sure enough, the chase is on. Hex Mambo push all of the remaining members of the Scarabs back towards their own jungle. And look at where the pings are coming from. They don't even, this doesn't open a window big enough for the Fire Giant. They start to knock down these objectives. They're improving the map state for themselves. They're even going to go for this tier 2.
100% get the tier 2 and then back off there. They're not in a position to defend this objective, and that's exactly what the call from Hex Mambo is. We're going to take this, we're going to back off. Do they finish it off? One more? It's on 1 health. It's essentially as good as gone. It's just not in the back pockets of their gold yet.
They may have stayed too long to find it, though, as the Horus ultimate comes in and silenced, grabs the opposing support. Julio is the target now as well, and I'm not sure he'll be able to make it out of this one. The blink will save him, though, and saves Hex Mambo from having yet another member down. That's going to be critical if they want a chance at defending this Fire Giant.
They can't. They're not in position.
Fast. I don't know if they get here in time. Johnny's stepping up, but everybody turns around onto him, and he's forced to ult out. The Fire Giant will go down to the Solar Scarabs, and I Silenced will fall in trade. Worst Turtle may be in some danger as well, but the pull back will peel for the jungler. They'll grab the Pyromancer as well. Julio's got to be careful here. He'll get taken out as well. Thin margins, but they get the objective.
They get the all-important Fire Giant on 4 members. Silent sacrifices himself. He's completely fine with that. If that means the rest of the team are just improved by the fire belt around their waist. They get the Pyromancer afterwards as well for another runic bomb. 6,000 gold in the lead, 9,000 pushing on, 10,000 experience difference now for the Solar Scarabs. They've firmly taken control of this tiebreaker game. And Hex Mambo, they haven't had answers in the past 2 games in that past set that we saw. This is the game where they have to find the answers, where they have to figure it out for themselves. Otherwise, second seed is theirs.
Yeah, now the fight changes. Right? I mean, ultimately, you could choose the jungle fight. You could try and fight around something like Gold Fury, catch him out in the jungle. But I think most likely we're going to see something of a Phoenix, maybe a tier 2 defense. Still early on, no EFG for these squads. How does the fight change under a Phoenix here?
For the Hex Mambo, they are good at defensive plays. They're good at defensive peels for themselves with their draft. The question is, are they well practiced on them? Don't forget, for being dominant for so long in this scene, their scrim practice is mostly going to be them playing the aggressive side of things. How well they've done on the defensive side of things on scrims, how many times they've been in this position, remains to be seen. And, you know, if they are rusty on that, they might have opportunities where they misplay their defense.
Look at where Johnny's positioned. He wants to find his way around the back of the Scarabs if he can find a window, but does get sniffed out there by I Silenced. And Hex Mambo very, very confident in wanting to put up a defense under this tier 2 tower. They don't want to lose any essence of the map state if they can avoid it. And I think they'll wait for this minion wave to push in and potentially put up a hard defense here if they want to expend some ultimates, but instead it will just be that soft defense, and Solar Scarabs are not able to get any of those ultimates, any of those relics. Everything is up here. I'm not sure they even have time for another push. This might just be another jungle dance around the Fire Giant.
Now, the Fire Giant spending in 26 seconds here for the Solar Scarabs. I think they might have had an opportunity to take down this tier 2 on the right-hand side. They could have walked in, taken it, the Hex Mambo, they weren't rotating over to defend it, but that's sort of the luxury that we get with all eyes over the top of the map. Solar Scarabs with limited information thanks to not having wards on their rotation paths, but Fire Giant is going to be the next call. It's going to be spawning in about a minute's time here. So enough time for the Solar Scarabs to come out, get their defensive wards, get their aggressive wards out, and see what they can find.
Yeah, I think now that the Fire Giant has come off spawn, right, we've got a full minute here where it's not going to be around anybody's waist. The fight is essentially even. No fire minions pouring in. Everybody's looking for the engage, and nobody wants to be the one that gets caught out. And I think Solar Scarabs confidently on the front foot. Last time it was Worst Turtle blinking in and finding the engage, but surely they're going to be ready for that this time around.
Yeah, Worst Turtle currently sitting second bottom damage on the damage charts, as you saw on the left-hand side. 3,700 damage coming out from the Circuit here. Not having the impactful game that we saw in game number 1 of that best of 3 set earlier. But again, still providing that just pressure, that space that the Circuit does bring.
They've backed off a little bit and have lost a little bit of that ward coverage as well as this Fire Giant spawns. Now, this does get dangerous at this time marker, right? 28:30, 1 minute and 30 seconds, 90 seconds, and this turns into an enhanced Fire Giant, which, you know, all the more important to be able to have that objective under your belts. Ooh. Good knock up there from Johnny, gets a little bit of poke, but that may be the smallest thing. You know, like, you get a little bit of poke, but both of these teams have healing. It's got to be a more dedicated engage than that.
Yeah, with the dedicated engage going to Julio with the Fire Giant pin, and he is gone in the blink of an eye.
The solo laner falls, and that's opening up the window. All of a sudden, Panvich is just pressing W. Johnny gets taken down, has to use the ult defensively, but it's not enough. They'll take down the second one, and the dive from Hex Mambo has been eviscerated. Julio does not get to play the game. Johnny doesn't get to have an impact, and they don't even need the Fire Giant at this point. They want to wait until it gets EFG. These death timers are so long that they're going to have these two members down for long enough. They're going to try and play this to hopefully get the EFG, I think.
No, that is 100% what they were doing. I think they were looking to get the tier 2 tower before they get this rejected, but look at the timing of this Fire Giant. 15 seconds until it is enhanced. Julio up in 10, Johnny up in 20. There's no contest coming from Hex Mambo. This is free for the enhancements coming up, and look, them waiting for it. Pamper's just tanking up as much as he can. 2 seconds, 1 second, and there it is. The enhanced, they've got it. They've got it perfectly on time.
Yeah, that was, I got a little bit worried there. I was like, you have to really play that by the thinnest of time. But yeah, they do get the enhanced Fire Giant, and God, I mean, you just are looking for that one pick. You're looking for that all-important one engagement. Neither team wants to be the one to, you know, give away their lives. And ultimately, it's Julio who just gets picked out. He's just left alone as the rest of his team does the Pyromancer.
Yeah, the ward coverage allowed them to see that. Allowed Solar Scarabs to say, hang on, 4 of them are on the Pyromancer. Julio's fine. Let's just kill Julio. Just go on him. We can kill him. We have enough damage. And lo and behold, they managed to blow him up before he gets his heal off, and we're still using that last breath ultimate just to make sure that he does not get that heal off.
Well, as the old adage goes, it's now time to siege Phoenixes. That's not really an old adage. I made it up as I said it, but it's now time to siege Phoenixes. All the tier 2 towers that they care about are down. It's only the Phoenixes left alive, and no surprise, they're all grouping up on the left-hand side of the map, and they've got the EFG. They don't even need the Runic Bomb, potentially, that they've got in their back pocket. They're rotating over. They're going to push in on this.
Yeah, they have the enhanced Fire Giant, so they don't even really need to wait for minions, but they're going to just engage, and they're going to force out the Home Sweet Home as well as the River's Rebuke.
Yeah, they catch 2, but both of the members able to jump out of there. The one saving grace is they take away the ultimate from Panvich. He is not going to have that big baby to try and dash in on this Phoenix, but they will get that damage. It's down to half HP on the Phoenix, and as these minions push in, they're going to maybe look back, but the ultimates, the damage used early on, will try and force things out as Julio is the victim of yet another last breath ultimate, but won't be enough to kill Julio. Will be enough space to kill the Phoenix.
Yeah, 1 down, 2 to go, but there's also a tier 2 tower on the right-hand side. The only minions look like they're going to be taking care of that one as they're pushing into the tower. And now the regular waves are going to meet up just outside of it. Tier 2 should fall down any second now, and there it does go. Phoenix is going to be the next objective here in mid lane.
Yeah, all 5 members once again grouped up on this. No Runic Bomb this time around, but EFG still burning off those backdoor protections. They've got to find a fight, and it's still Hex Mambo
Johnny?
just letting them go in. They take the left, they take the mid Phoenix, and, you know, you've expended some ultimates, but nobody has found a fight. Hex Mambo are so, you know, if they find the wrong defense, they all get wiped. They lose the game. So they're holding on to the game, at least. Their Titan's alive, but they just give away 2 Phoenixes for nothing.
And it's gonna get from bad to worse as well. Pyromancer's spawning up. and that's going to be taken here by the Solar Scarabs, so they set themselves up for what is hopefully the final push. Minute left until the Enhanced Fire Giant spawns again. Hex Mambo, they have to come out of the blocks and defend this, otherwise it is going to be game over.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a risky look, right? You don't want to put up the wrong fight under a Phoenix, but at the same time, you kind of feel like you have to put on a fight at a Phoenix. And now it almost felt like Julio is afraid to step up after he getting picked over towards that Fire Giant. He just wasn't making the same space that it felt like he's been making over on that left-hand Phoenix push. You're absolutely right. They have to step up on this, but if the Scarabs are smart, they've got Fire Minions pushing in. They can just wait.
Yeah, this is entirely in the Scarabs' hands. They hold all the cards here. If Hex Mambo don't step up, free Enhanced Fire Giant. If the Mambo do step up, just play it slow, play it at a snail's pace, and wait for the 5 minutes to push into the title room. Eventually, someone's gonna have to back and defend it, and then you take a very favorable 5 versus 4, or everybody has to back off anyway, and you just get a free Enhanced Fire Giant. This next one belongs to the Solar Scarabs if they play their cards right.
The onus is on Hex Mambo to find something here before the Fire Minions become too much to handle. And it's a pull in from Worst Turtle that forces the dash away from the jungler. And sure enough, they're on the Fire Giant. This is do or die from the
Julio
Mambo
again.
on this. And Julio is out in the front line. He'll get taken down again. And Panvich is finding success in the back. He'll push out Kha'Zix. He'll force the ultimate from Hawk. And it's now a free Enhanced Fire Giant from Solar Scarabs. Things have gone from bad to worse to catastrophic for Hex Mambo. They lose their Soul Inner and they'll lose the Fire Giant as well.
I think the one major, crucial detail that has cost Hex Mambo this game, if the results goes the way we think it's going to go, have a look at Julio's relics. He is the only one on his side without beads, and who's been falling down consistently to the entire engaged combo from Solar Scarabs? It is Julio. The blink has been ineffective for him in this game. I think if he has beads in that scenario, we see a completely different game.
If they want to stay alive, this has to be perfect. The 4v5 defense, and they're already onto the Titan. It's falling fast, and it will get taken down. The Solar Scarabs, your first seed for EU-SEC.
Hex Mambo first seed throughout Europe last season, in the entirety of last season, looking like they were going to do the exact same thing here in split number 1 in season 10, but the Solar Scarabs have completely different ideas. They have shut down the Mambo, they have shut down the groove coming out from Julio and co, and they're going to be going to land as your first seed in the EU-SEC.
Congratulations to the Solar Scarabs, and a very well played game at that. I mean, you know, props to Hex Mambo. They had to fight back into that one. They choose a little bit of a different draft, and certainly both of these teams, I think, have a lot to pull from as they start to prep for the upcoming Summer Masters LAN. All important if they want to try and make that path towards the World Championship. But as much as they were able to pull out, Solar Scarabs able to adapt very well. It took them a little bit longer to get that lead online, but ultimately they ended up taking control of it.
Ultimately, it's just the same thing that came back to bite the Hex Mambo in the past, because they just never got the opportunity to snowball their leads. They got the early 2 kills on Julio, but the 2 kills on Charlie. But what happened with those 2 kills? Nothing. They didn't push into objectives. They didn't push into towers. They didn't push into team fights, and they just let Solar Scarabs get back into the game.
Well, once again, congratulations to the Solar Scarabs' first seed for European SMITE Challenger Circuit. That's going to do it for us in the morning. I've been Frog, been joined by AJ, and there's plenty more SMITE action coming at you next. Stick around, SPL up next.